It's not the house that's haunted. It's your son.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
Episode 20 of Slashers in Sync season 2 finale. We're finally here. We've been doing this show for 20 weeks.
I know, it's insane.
It doesn't feel real.
No, that's like 5 months.
Yeah, it actually feels like we just started still. I don't know why. Maybe it's because we're still just kind of not knowing what we're doing here. We're just fucking around.
Hey, don't tell them that.
we're just fucking around, having fun, talking movies.
Yeah.
I think next season it'll ramp up a little bit in terms of production quality, where we'll do video stuff. Funny enough, if you're a fan of Apple and you have an iPhone and an iPad, they released a new app called Final Cut Camera, and you can do multicam stuff. So even though we have the professional setups and the stands, Marvalous and I can actually just record video with our phones, and with that professional app, we can dial the different exposures and treat it very professional, and we can monitor everything on our iPads. So that's going to be super dope. I can't wait to start doing that. It'll make things a lot easier for us and to give you guys more than just what we're giving you now. So
that's for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. So stay tuned for all of that. Go over to Slash and Sync on Instagram and TikTok. Links will be down below in the description. And yeah, man, we're here to talk about Scream 5 and 6. Last finale was Scream 1 through 4. I guess the Wes Craven franchise. Now we're talking about Radio Silence's depiction and iteration of the Scream franchise with 5 and 6. Or Scream 2022. Because they kind of did the whole Halloween route. Yeah. Which I guess was tongue-in-cheek of that, because they do mention Halloween directly in Scream 5. So.
And they make fun of how, this movie is a requel, so, and all requels don't put, a number after it. It's only the year that it was produced.
Were you a fan of... I can't remember if we said this in the podcast. Were you a fan of Scream 4's, opening? With, the whole stab movies, and then, it's a movie within a movie?
It was very meta.
Yeah.
But I thought it fed into the Scream franchise. So I was like, I guess.
So we kind of step away from that and we jump into a more traditional, very early Scream, like Scream 1 style, I can't even really say 2, because 2 kind of went out of the zone with the theater scene.
It did.
Whereas with this one, it's very just a girl at home by herself. Parents are out. She gets a call. And it was really well done. I think you had even brought up just how when Ghostface is talking to the main girl, who is Jenna Ortega, and she's playing the character of Tara Carpenter. And yeah, Ghostface was really in his bag in this one. It's right off the bat, you can kind of tell it's Ghostface that's calling, but at the same time, not really. And I think that just goes to show how good of a voice actor the actor is for Ghostface. I believe his name is Ken Rogers or Kenny Rogers. I could be wrong on that. I'll probably look it up in a second. But yeah, just phenomenal acting. And you hear him turn into Ghostface mid-call.
You do.
And that was really dope. You even pointed out something when he calls. He introduces himself as
Charlie,
which is the killer of the last movie, right?
Yes,
Jill and Charlie.
Yeah, Jill and Charlie. It was the boyfriend, Charlie, who not stabs Kirby in the stomach. So it's pretty funny. I also think the whole modern twist about how, she's texting her friend and then gets a call on her landline of all things, which isn't very modern, but it is very much a tip of the hat to all the Scream franchises, like you said.
Yeah, definitely going back to his roots.
Definitely. Seeing the text messages were actually pretty cool because you can kind of see things transition. Mind you, she's messaging her friend Amber, who comes into play later. But you watch the text literally turn more and more hostile. And then that's whenever you come to find out that the person on the other end of the phone is not Amber.
I just looked it up, by the way. Kenny Rogers is a country singer. Roger Jackson She's the voice actor for.
All right. I didn't even question it. I don't know these names all too much. So.
No, because we said it all the time in the last one. I don't know why the name slipped my mind, but I've always been a huge fan of Roger Jackson. I actually like when he does like the fan convention stuff where he puts the voice in, and goes off. So
yeah,
I actually do like that a lot.
Yeah,
but you're not wrong. It ends up turning out to not be Amber, and that's when the tone of the movie changes completely.
Yeah.
That's when, at this point, you're locked in for a Scream opening.
Definitely.
And somebody's going to get stabbed. Mm-hmm. No pun intended. So the mysterious caller, or Ghostface, keeps calling back, and Tara would hang up, and then you would see like shadows across the windows and stuff like that. A little bit different than how Scream 1 did it, but still enough to let you know that there was somebody lurking out there. I think what Wes Craven did in 1 is that he would kind of have like the bushes moving, or like, I think when Drew Barrymore's character Casey opened the door, like the wind was blowing. So he played a lot more like on if someone's really there or not. Yeah. Whereas this one, someone's there.
Yeah, it's very much in your face.
Yeah, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think no. Different depictions of how Ghostface would attack.
Exactly.
And then it leads to her smart house constantly unlocking and disarming. And that really does show the age that we're in. Because even though Scream 4 was pretty meta with the Facebook and Twitter, the smartphones, this one, she's controlling her entire house with her phone. And you're really seeing how Ghostface uses that against her, which we can very much relate to because that's where we are right now with AI and smart locks and everything.
It's kind of scary. I mean, thinking about it, this movie kind of brought every fear to the screen if I were to ever have like a smart home or like current day alarm system, because all it takes is for somebody that you trust to have a twisted enough mind to clone your phone, or not even somebody that you trust, just a random person decide, hey, I'm going to mark you, let me go ahead and clone your phone, and my whole life is literally in their hands.
Might even be easier than that. You're just caught slipping, you leave your phone out while you're in the bathroom, someone takes your password.
That's it. It's a done deal.
It. Yeah.
But digressing from that fear that I have, eventually we see the intruder in the house because of the constant arming and disarming. And that's when essentially they take their time in killing Tara. So I think Tara opens the door and Ghostface ends up stabbing her in the stomach. She closes the door, and that's when he's in the house. I think she walks him through like a hallway, is about to have a breakdown of some sort. And then that's whenever he shows up. And he seems to be taking his time with her.
It's pretty brutal, man. Especially when he stabs her in the ankle. Like that. Or I think it's the ankle, right?
It's the ankle. It's the hand. Very much like Ready or Not-esque with like the hole through the hand type of deal.
Yeah.
And then that's when Ghostface turns Tara over and takes a slash at her. But that's whenever the title screen comes on. And first time watching it, I thought that was it. Like, Tara's done.
You would think so, because again, the kill was brutal. It's like, I'm not gonna sit here and say it's one of the worst kills that we've seen in the franchise, but it was definitely at a level that you were just like, that person did not survive that.
Essentially, because the whole idea about how she ended up signaling the police, and the police were pulling in as Ghostface is like turning her over and preparing himself for that final slash. That all screams very much second or third act, not first act. So the movie, while it took a traditional opening, it definitely caught my attention in a different way.
So once the attack is over, we get the opening, and then it cuts to a different area or a different town. Mm-hmm. I think it's Modessa, is the name of the town that they're in.
Yes.
And we see a girl sitting outside of her work area. I think she's smoking.
No, she's taking her medication.
She's taking her medication.
But she has a little monster can in her hand, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, very you.
Anyway.
Or not monster, but
Yeah.
Find us with a ghost can. Or something like that.
Yeah.
Orange creamsicle. If you haven't seen that, sponsor us, by the way, Ghost.
Please.
Speed. But yeah, we see her there, and then the girl name is Sam, played by Melissa Barrera. And yes, we're very much aware of the situation with Melissa Barrera and Scream, but we won't really talk about that. And maybe we'll do like a TikTok or something and kind of give our thoughts.
Essentially, right now we're talking about the movies as the movies. I know Scream currently right now has a lot of controversy within it. we owned the movies prior to all this shit hitting the fan, so I don't know, it's very weird because I don't really support what's going on right now, but I already own these films, so whatever money I already had to give them has been given.
Yeah, and this here is just kind of us reviewing and giving our thoughts on the films that have already been out, produced, published. We own, so it's like... But Sam, who is with her boyfriend...
Stepping away from that serious note.
Yeah. Sam, who's with her boyfriend, Richie. They have like a little fun back and forth. She gets a call from a kid she used to babysit by the name of Wes, who is played by the guy, I forget his name, from...
Open House.
Open House and 13 Reasons Why, I think, right? I never saw that because supposedly of all the grape stuff. So
yes.
I never watched it.
Yeah, there was a lot of it. I didn't watch it either. I think my sister did. So, I mean...
It was one of those shows that kind of... I don't want to say put Netflix on its... you know... on a pedestal, but it was like... You had to have like a Netflix subscription to watch that.
Essentially.
Right?
It very much... It was Stranger Things before Stranger Things. That show, I believe, is what gave Netflix its confidence to create its own series.
Yeah, because it's either like that same year or like before that year, right? That 2015-ish, so where it came out. So she gets a call from Wes, and Wes explains that Tara was attacked by a killer in a ghost face mask, and she hauls ass over there. But of course, not without taking her boyfriend, who insists on driving all the way from Odessa to Woodsboro. They make it to the hospital, and Tara is conscious. Sam's demeanor changes, and eventually everyone leaves the hospital because I think Amber is the one who kind of suggests it. I don't know if that's because she wants to kind of like... I don't know, but she suggests it. And by the way, they're there because we actually saw a scene where they're at their, I guess, the front area of the school. Like they're just chilling. Yeah,
like the courtyard.
The courtyard or something. Or like back in my school, we call it the circle. So
yeah.
So they're just there chilling. There's cops everywhere. Kind of reminiscent of like Scream films, like 1 and 2 and 4, where there's like cops everywhere, all that stuff. But at the same time, they don't really pay too much attention to it. It's not a big focus like it is back in those movies.
No, definitely
But then again, this is the age of social media, and as you could tell, there weren't that many news trucks around either.
No.
So, because nowadays, if y'all haven't like seen it on Twitter and stuff, a lot of news channels and stuff get their stuff from Twitter. Like they'll reply to people, can we use your footage?
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of that coverage is now off of people. It's not so much about actual like crews being out there. But yeah, they're there because of that. They left school early. Amber suggests everyone leaves. This, of course, kicks everyone out of the room except for Sam because Tara wants her to stay. She specifically wants her there. And there seems to be some weird tension with Amber and Sam whenever Tara makes that note.
Yes.
Like Amber almost like, all right, like, okay, bitch. You know
yeah,
what
very
I mean?
Surprised, like very defensive, guards up. You can tell that Amber does not like Sam.
Yeah.
And Sam seems to, I don't want to say be afraid, but kind of like becomes more meek whenever Amber like tends to flare up on that note.
Yeah.
Because I won't say she shrinks in her shell, but she doesn't like stand proud either. She's just kind of there.
She's definitely ashamed of something, and we find out why later.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why she feels like she can't act like the big sister. Like she's almost, because I think she's aware that Amber was there for for Tara when she wasn't.
Yeah.
You know. Later that night, or actually real quick, Richie actually makes a comment about it, which causes Amber to kind of give Richie a little side eye.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny after what we find out later. You know. So.
It's interesting that their interaction, like, with the entire group was like this, but like you said, we'll dive into it in just a bit.
And we're gonna like not, you know, beat around the bush. We've seen this movie like at least 6 to 7 times.
Definitely.
And maybe even more.
I'm not ashamed.
And I've also reviewed it on my TikTok already, which is now Slash and Sync, by the way. Nice plug.
Smooth.
So we're gonna just say it like Richie and Amber are the Ghostface killers.
Yeah.
So there you go. I'm sure y'all guys have seen. If you're watching this or listening to this, y'all have seen the movie by now, probably.
I would hope so, anyway. But if not, then spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I don't know why you clicked on this.
Yeah, I'll put spoiler in the description. But yeah, so little side eye to Richie. So a little nice little nod there to you know, little foreshadow there. But later that night at a bar, we see the kids hanging out. Amber explains her disdain for Sam, but basically she says like Sam kind of turned into like a little mini drug addict, like a little
Yeah, she was running around town, causing a lot of trouble. We get confirmation later in the movie when Sam seems to have an interaction with Gail about the current chief. But I'm jumping ahead. Anyway, yeah, Amber just kind of explains why, and then
I think that guy that Liv had saw for like a split second. Supposedly they had mentioned briefly that she had like a summer fling with him or something, and
which is weird because I get the idea, or at least the perception, that Liv is very much a virgin, which is why she hasn't really done major things with Chad. I think she gets made fun of within the group. So the fact that she was fooling around with the older guy during the summertime, and how he seems to be pestering around the high school just to pick her up again. First of all, that gives off very heavy pedo vibes. But going back to the whole interaction between Liv and this guy, I guess, it's very strange because you can see Liv is very much together with Chad, and Chad gets very defensive anytime he sees this guy roll around.
Funny enough, this guy's actually played by Kyle Gallner, and he's actually one of my I'm not gonna say he's one of my favorite actors, but very familiar face. He's in the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. He plays kind of like the Johnny Depp iteration, like the love interest.
Yeah.
He's also in The Passenger, a very good movie that is basically just him and this other guy throughout the entire movie, just like driving along and killing people. It's a very interesting film, and he definitely carries it. He's also the love interest in Smile as well. Looking forward to Smile 2 later in the year.
Yes.
But Smile, he's also in that one as well, playing the detective, I believe. Mm-hmm. So very good actor. So it was cool to see him. His name is Vince, actually. I just looked that up. So,
Vince. Okay.
There you go, Vince. So Vince shows up at the bar.
Yeah.
He confronts Liv and Chad. A little fight breaks out there, and then
They all get kicked out.
They all get kicked out. Now, I'm going to let you talk about the scene where... Because you're the one who mentioned how Red Hand is playing in the background of this. So I'll let you talk about how Vince gets killed. So.
Well, I mean, once, everybody gets kicked out, you can very much tell that Vince is under the influence. So he's parked in the back. He takes a piss in the alleyway up against the wall. But while he's doing that, somebody opens up his car and starts it. However, he has his keys. Mind you, Vince is driving an older car. So doing this, like starting up an old car, isn't that hard without the keys.
Yeah.
Vince stops himself from, publicly urinating and runs around and goes to his car and sees that the fucking screwdriver's in his ignition, takes it out. But he only finds out that this shit's happening because Red Hand's playing on his stereo. No, I don't know.
Which is hilarious because, was that on the right station at the time?
Either the right station or this man had aux or decent stereo swapped out, which is criminal to do for a classic car because his car looked like a classic.
Maybe he had a tape or something, a Red Hand. It's a
good
song.
It is. But I mean, considering the fact that it's the fucking theme song of the franchise and it plays on the stereo, that's neither here nor there. And he's Stu's nephew.
And we find that out later, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I actually kind of marked out. I forgot for a split second that he was Stu's nephew. I actually ran up to MJ and I was like, "Hey, did you know?" And he's like, "Yeah, we've seen this movie a few times."
We talked about it the first time we watched it.
I digress. However, whenever it comes to Vince's killing, I think it's one of the coolest ones because there's this very gradual buildup, right? So you think that Vince is really going to get it, especially with him being this big, asshole dickhead energy that he has, because a lot of recent movies, when people have that kind of charisma around them, they eventually quote unquote get it. He gets killed in almost like a prison shanking kind of way, where this ghost face is behind him, makes no sound, shanks him in the throat, and
it's quick,
doesn't do anything else, just watches him crawl and bleed out right there in the parking lot.
It's very quick.
If you blink at the wrong time, you'll miss it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like it's one of the most excruciating kills.
I agree with you. And very interesting because Vince comes off like a very tough individual. Mm-hmm. He already had a switchblade on him. I bet Homeboy had a gun in his car somewhere.
Probably.
So the fact that he gets taken out so quickly kind of leads into an interesting line that Dewey has later on, but we'll get into that. Mm-hmm. So Vince gets taken out very quick. We go back to the hospital. Funny enough, Richie's watching Stab because it was conveniently on Netflix. So he's watching Stab. Sam leaves the room. She sees a vision of Billy Loomis. Now this is where it gets interesting. So now we're seeing the original killer from the first movie, from the first Scream. CG wasn't the best here.
No, you can tell that the actor has aged.
They
tried their best.
They do a better version of it in Scream 6, but we'll get to that later. Debatable, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, the original killer from Scream, and then she gets a call from Ghostface. You know, she's talking to him like, did you are you the one that like did this? You know, come after me, whatever. She gets attacked, but she survives. And I also kind of noted in my head that it's kind of interesting because she's wearing the same exact attire that Billy is. Like black combat boots or black combat style boots with the blue jeans and the white shirt. I mean, not an uncommon fit, but it was kind of interesting because you get to see like him and her, like, you know,
the similarities, the features that they share, and how like she really could be his daughter. Like they were really pushing for it, which I feel like subconsciously it really did play into my head that, oh fuck, like she is his daughter. Yeah.
That's when we eventually get to the scene that Marvel was talking about because she's pissed off. Ghostface was in the hospital, a public area. If she wasn't there, would Tara have been targeted? She wants more protection. That's when Sheriff Judy actually makes a comment on the fact that, like, hey, you left. You haven't been here. And of course, they're talking outside because she didn't want to do this in front of Tara. And she kind of lets her know how much of a troublemaker she is. I think she even tells her, like,
you have a bit of time and you need to leave town.
And then you need to get the fuck out of here, right?
Yeah, so it really feeds into the story that Amber was really pushing, that Sam was very much a troublemaker and somebody who just would not follow the rules.
And according to Judy, she doesn't want a Ghostface running around and Sam Carpenter here.
Yeah.
So at the same time. So that happens. And then even around this time as well, Amber and Richie go back and forth on, oh, you're the killer. And I thought, again, very interesting. So again, a little nudge there, a little foreshadow there.
Definitely. And the fact that they're on each other's cases and they seem to be looking for their friends' validations that they never could be.
Yeah. And what's even funnier about it is that they just met earlier that day for like 2 minutes.
So why would they argue?
Yeah. So, but anyways, in the morning, that's when Sam lays it all out to Tara to why she left and how she left. And she says the reason that Ghostface keeps coming back and to even attack her in the first place is because her father is Billy Loomis. Their mother had an affair with him while in high school, even though, you know, she was dating someone else. And I would have to think that Billy was also dating Sydney at this time, too.
I would think so. I think there was at one point where you and I were watching the film and we made the headcanon that he probably went and like messed around with this girl during the time of him being released from prison and then coming back to school. Because, I don't know. I feel like Billy had a lot of time unaccounted for. And then showed up because when he showed up at school, he showed up late. And I get it, like the prison system or the county system, whatever the case may be, is a slow process to go through. But at the same time, like, I think we come to find out that he was released the night prior. So what the fuck was he doing from the night to the morning? Or who, I guess.
There's a couple of things to note because I think in the first film when they're at the video store, he's actually flirting with some chicks, right?
Yeah, he's surrounded by a bunch of girls.
Yeah, while Stu is talking to
Randy.
Yeah. And I can't remember if this was like a fan fiction thing, but I do remember a pretty big like Scream channel or just huge fan of Scream and Ghostface on YouTube covering like this scene of like where Billy, I guess, at some point after the attack on Sydney's mom, that he was getting down with some chick and supposedly he had the urge to strangle her, but he held himself back. I can't remember if that's like fan fiction that he was reading or if it was actually some like original script draft or whatever, right? But if that was the case, I think there's plenty of evidence there that leads to him being with somebody other than Sydney. And the whole him being with Sydney for more than a year also comes from where he says that since your mom died last year, you've been different. Yeah. So that implies that they were together when she was a junior and then when they're seniors, you know? So that makes some sense as well, too, that he probably did cheat on her because I guess Sydney wasn't putting out. You know?
Definitely not, especially after all the accusations that her mom had. But going back to Scream 2022 or Scream 5, I guess, it's around this time where, while Richie seems to be diving into the Stab franchise, she gets a recommendation through him saying that she should probably connect with somebody who's a bit more familiar with the situation at hand. Because, I mean, throughout the movie so far, Richie's has been shown to try and catch up, if you will, with the lore and like the whole story behind the city and why the Stab movies took place and why Gale is Gale and things along those lines. It's really interesting though, because he seems to be watching the films at a very fast pace, and there's 8 of them, and this all seems to be happening within a very finite amount of time. So, and I think this registered to me now. I'm pretty sure he couldn't watch all 8 of them during the amount of days that had passed, because he only had so much time space between him being together with Sam and them breaking off.
Yeah, I was actually about to bring that up. They're driving from Odessa to Woodsboro in that one day. They get to the hospital. I don't know how long that drive is, but they get to that hospital that day. Mm-hmm. And he says in the car ride he hasn't seen any of them.
Nope.
And he started watching Stab. He just says Stab, the first one. That night when Sam gets attacked in the
hospital,
the lounge area.
Yep.
And then the next day is when Tara kicks Sam and Richie out, and that's when they go find Dewey. Mm-hmm. And later that day is also the day where we'll get to Dewey later. So how could he have watched 1 through 8 all in that span of time? Yeah. Especially when he says that later on, another scene we'll get to when he's watching the Screams universe version of the kill count with, the people from the Deadbeat channel. So, but shout out to them, by the way. That's cool.
I know the fact that they had a whole feature in a franchise. That's pretty dope. But
we're jumping way ahead. So
yes, we are.
He of course is catching up to the lore. He's very into Stab right now to save his own behind and Sam's, according to him. So they go and they look out for a legacy character, if you will. So Dewey and Gale aren't together anymore. And you can tell just by the way Homeboy living that he's had it rough, man.
He lives in a fucking trailer, first and foremost.
Remember that big-ass house he had, too?
He had a gigantic house with Gale. So he lives in a trailer. Trailer's run down. He has photos everywhere. He has bottles everywhere. Things aren't kept up. He's not kept up. He gets a knock on the door, and you can tell that he's fucking pissed. Yeah. Mind you, on the TV screen, you have him flipped onto the news where Gale's reporting all the news from New York, which I think is really cute. But yeah. Anyway,
that's she always wanted to be like the next Diane Sawyer or the next yes. She wanted to be what people woke up in the morning and saw. She wanted America to see her.
Essentially.
And she gets that wish. It was also kind of sad too because David Arquette and Courtney Cox aren't together in real life anymore. So it is what it is, and
it kind of breaks my heart but at the same time, the parallel of the fact that in real life and in the movie it seems to be consistent is almost poetic. But going back into the scene, once you kind of get introduced to how Dewey's been quote unquote keeping up with himself, door's knocked, he's hesitant to open. You can even tell that he really, really doesn't want to do this. He tells whoever's outside, which is Sam and Richie, to go away. He doesn't want to do interviews or things like that. And Sam is there just begging him for a couple minutes, and then she just goes, you know what? I'm gonna just in her mind, you can see the switch click where she goes, I'm just gonna lay out the truth. My name's Sam Carpenter. Billy Loomis was my biological father. Dewey opens the door right away and says that's a terrible reason to get me to talk to you. Yeah. But yet he opened the door. Yeah. Which I think is very funny because it feeds into the Dewey character that he had throughout the films up until this. Yeah. Because up until this film, he was the very much happy-go-lucky, bubbly, witty character that you could always rely on to kind of break you away from all the tension. He seems to be on the other side of the coin.
But at the same time, it still is very reminiscent of Dewey because it's like something Dewey in Scream 3 would do. Just what do you mean the killer came from that way? Oh, so we should go that way? What do you mean let's go that way? Yeah. and then he'll follow that person, with the gun. It's essentially not to say he's dumb or nothing, but he's very trusting and very...
He can be naive at times, but overall, he's a character that I truly enjoy seeing. So seeing that slight switch of him being so sad and so wallowing in self-pity to him being like, well, that's a terrible reason to get me to talk to you, but yet the door is open. Like, I feel like it just shows that the old Dewey's very not far off. He's just hurt. But anyway, you have Sam and Dewey finally like connecting and talking about like how...
Oh, don't forget Richie being starstruck when the door was open.
That, yes. I kind of fast forward. And so whenever Dewey opens the door, you see him leaning against the door frame saying like, hey, this is a terrible reason. Camera shoots to behind Dewey to Sam's face. But in the background, in the blurred background, you see Richie just standing real still, breathing, staring only at Dewey. And then for a split second, he breaks away, looks at Sam, and then immediately eyes glue back onto Dewey. At one point, you can kind of sit back and think that, okay, well, maybe he's like really taking in who Dewey is. But after you and I have watched the movies on multiple occasions, you and I can recognize the face of being starstruck. And he very much was starstruck. He was trying to keep himself collected. And you can tell, because if he marked out right there, he would have eventually marked himself as being the potential killer for sure. Because not even, 25 minutes ago into the film, however many hours ago into the movie, he had told Sam, I have never seen any of the Stab films. So how the fuck would he know who Dewey is?
Only, and after watching just the first movie in the hospital, which we don't even know if he's finished, by the way, because Sam got attacked.
Yeah.
How would he be a fan of this character or
Yep.
of this person? But also wanted to throw in too, we do know from Scream 6, which we'll get into later, why he's such a big fan.
Yep.
So that makes it even better. Let's keep it 100, dog. Scream 6 made Scream 5 a better movie.
It definitely did.
But just going off of what we know in Scream 5, him being starstruck still makes sense.
It definitely does.
Because he's a fan. They explain that later in the monologue, but we'll get to that later.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess to pick up where you left off, sorry about that. They talk, and he actually starts calling Richie out because Dewey knows one thing. Don't trust the love interest. He's very much aware of that one fact.
Yeah.
He even tried to put that into Sydney's head in the movie too. Like,
yeah. He seems to really follow Randy's advice as far as how to survive a horror movie.
Yes, exactly. And he's very against the love interest. And
yep.
I can't blame him, because if you and I had to take a guess, I think Randy and Stu were outside the house with Sydney.
Yes.
So the only person who could have stabbed Dewey in the back would have been Billy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, makes sense. But after that, he decides not to help them, at least for the time being. They leave. On the other side note here, Richie again says, wow, I liked him better in the movies.
Movies, plural.
Yeah, and again, you only watched the first one, homeboy, so...
Yeah, so how would you know?
You're not doing yourself any favors here.
And people are usually very disappointed when they meet their heroes.
Yeah, so again, there you go. But then Dewey goes and gives a call to Sydney, who says that her and Mark are actually living happily together. Mark, I guess, was confirmed in a convention actually to be Mark Kincaid, the detective from movie 3, which is pretty dope.
Yeah, seeing that kind of connect is cute, because I'm pretty sure they made very cute babies, but that's even here or there.
Dewey's afraid to get a hold of Gail, but he tells Sydney not to come back, and he's probably going to tell Gail the same thing. Mm-hmm. So then he finally puts his jacket on. He's going to go ahead and suit up one more time, and he goes out there to help Richie and Sam. They get the whole cast together, and I'm not the biggest fan of this scene. I'm really not. So I'm going to pass it over to Marva so she can talk about it, but it is the Mindy requel stuff. I feel like they handle this scene a lot better in Scream 6. I get it. Randy does it, where he explains the rules and what the movie is about. I just feel like the dialogue here wasn't the best. I feel like the actors themselves weren't into it. Like, at least when like Randy's explaining and breaking down the suspects, like Dewey's like, yeah, Gail is cutthroat. No, it can't be her. Mm-hmm. What about Sydney's roommate? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, come on, Randy, you're friends with these people. What about Mickey? Randy, that'll make me a suspect, so fuck no. Yeah. Like, you get that real... Like, maybe it's just because they have better chemistry, those actors. Maybe. That could be a thing. Because I just don't get that in this scene. It very much just feels like Mindy is just like citing off a script, and it doesn't feel real. But I'll let you explain the requel.
I mean, who knows? Maybe the actress didn't really blossom into her role as Mindy at this point in time, and we see her kind of blossom more and more as the movie progresses.
Fair.
But
same happens with Sam.
Exactly.
With Melissa Barrera.
Because that's the one thing that you and I always gloss over. We focus on Sam so much, but the side characters are also there. They're not really side characters. They're very much main characters in their own way. But going back to the scene, this is where Mindy kind of takes on Randy's role, who we come to find out both Mindy and Chad are nieces and nephews to Randy.
They're twins, right?
They are twins. Yeah. And this is where Mindy gives a rundown. She just essentially goes through the fact that this Ghostface, more likely than not, is trying to do a requel or a legacy sequel, however you want to call it. But essentially, it's something that Hollywood's doing where it's taking the old films and modernizing it. And that's what this Ghostface seems to be doing. She really dives into the rules and also lists off who could it potentially be. I think she ends up listing off a little incorrectly and very much focuses on Liv because she just seems a little too convenient. But at the same time, like you mentioned, because the scene isn't too engaging, a lot of the times whenever we are rewatching it, I catch myself kind of like dissociating for a split second.
I think the best scene there is probably the Wes and Dewey one where he's just like, man, you're the killer. Yeah. Because that cut too deep. when he hits him with the alcoholism and the whole
essentially,
Gail Weathers leaving him like that.
Yeah.
That was probably the best little interaction there, which again, just goes back to, I think David Arquette knows how to play this character.
He does.
He's done it for like 4 fucking movies. So maybe it is just the other characters haven't come in together yet. You know what I mean? Like
probably, because I mean, like you and I have talked about how all these characters are like really close and so on and so forth, especially the core 4. But at the same time, like this is their first project together. This is them trying to put everything together. These characters are new. They aren't old characters for them to really like build stories off of. So I'm going to give them a little bit of wiggle room there. But like you mentioned, Scream 6 definitely makes Scream 5 or Scream 2022 a whole lot better than how it's originally put out. However, like once this is all done, I believe there's this like whole scenario that she makes up about the new Ghostface. And she almost gets it right as who the ghost faces could be at her first guess. She lists off Richie, and I think she even lists off Amber because it seems a little bit too convenient. But
something about Amber and Tara, yeah,
definitely. But she shakes it off and she lists off somebody else in the group, which is Liv essentially, and that's where the scene cuts to Wes and Sheriff Judy.
Yeah, now, she says something that pisses off Sam, and Sam just storms off on her own.
She does.
I forget what it is. I think she implies that she could either be the killer or, which that's what plays into. She actually guesses the motive of Amber and Richie later in the monologue.
She does.
Yeah, that Sam is the killer or that you have to be the killer.
Essentially,
it makes the most sense.
Essentially, you know? So Mindy kind of feeds into it, or I guess inadvertently it feeds into the whole idea that Amber and Richie had plotted throughout the film, which I'm sure the two of them got a kick out of it, seeing one of her own turn against her, if you will.
But she's also a fan. She's on those subreddits too. She knows that
she
shit.
is. Yeah. So Sam storms off, and then before all that happens, though, whenever the small exchanges are happening between the characters, the audience members come to find out that Wes has heavy feelings for Tara, but has never really done anything about it. And all the characters make fun of him for it. So then that's where the scene cuts and transitions into Wes and Sheriff Judy being at the house and being very apparent to being the next targets for this Ghostface. So they get taken out pretty easily and pretty strategically. It's sad to say, since Judy from Scream 4 is one of the characters who most of the audience have a bit of history with. I think you and I kind of touched base on it, where in Scream 4 she even was drawn to be almost, or portrayed to be, Ghostface for a split second, but overall you've built that connection with her. You've seen that more comical comedic side of her, not so much the serious sheriff version of her. I mean, you would see it flare up with Gail, which was pretty funny, but seeing her arm herself up, if you will, metaphorically and literally towards other characters was also very entertaining.
It sucks to see too, because you can see they are like a loving family.
They are. I mean, it's a 2-person family, but they seem very close. They seem very connected. I mean, Wes gives his mom like the standard teenage attitude, but still goes out of his way to like set the table and like make sure everything is right. And carries like the taser and the pepper spray that his mom tells him to carry, even though most boys wouldn't do that. So it really does show that their connection is deep. But the way that they're killed is pretty interesting because Judy, and you and I spent a good minute talking about this. So I had the headcanon that Ghostface, who we come to terms that is probably Ethan, was on the patio waiting for Judy to leave. Once the door is locked, he calls Judy not even a minute or two after she's gone from the house, saying how Ghostface is going to kill Wes.
Yeah.
She turns around, comes back, is sprinting towards the door, and that's when Ghostface like slides out from the patio, stabs her a couple of times, and gets into the house. Wes is now downstairs. You have a few scenes where the tension is really building. It's not even like 3 scenes and then the Ghostface pops out. I think it's like the 4th or 5th stage set up for Ghostface to pop when he actually does. So by that time, at least with my first round of watching, I thought that he really wasn't going to pop up in this scene. And he did.
Right.
I didn't get a jump scare out of it, but I was like, oh, okay, cool. So Wes gets killed, but the way that he gets killed is semi-similar to Vince, but not really. He gets stabbed in the throat, but his stab is like under a few layers of skin and into the carotid artery. And this kill, when you and I talked about it, I was surprised that you and I envisioned the same type of kill. Where when we see the knife go into his throat and then peek out on the other side, I thought this Ghostface was going to turn it and then slice out of the skin and cause more blood to spill.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that. He just leaves the knife there and lets Wes bleed out.
Like in my head, I envisioned like him doing the turning and then it would cut to us seeing Ghostface's back and then you would see him go like that and then you would see the blood squirt to the left side of the screen. Like I thought that's what we were gonna see, especially in theaters.
Yeah,
mainly in theaters. I definitely thought that. Like when we first watched it, that was my headcanon for that. Interesting enough, after all of this happens, everyone pulls up here. Gail, Dewey, Sam. We'll get into Gail and Dewey in a second, but it's interesting that I know cops and the police department aren't a big thing of the Scream films.
No.
Neither in Halloween as well. But the one thing that Halloween does do a couple of times in Halloween 4 and in 2018, and even I think in 22, I believe, with Kills, is that they show that when a cop gets killed, that they're ready to go hunt. Like, you become the prey and they want to come after you.
Very much mob mentality.
Yeah. And I even said, what did I say the other day? Like the fury of the blue will come down on you.
Yeah.
And like no bars. Like they get pissed, turns into a riot. Like they're ready to go just storm the streets, guns ablazing, right? You don't really get that here.
No.
However, you did mention it could be off screen because of the interaction with this one cop and Sam, you know? But no, yeah, in these other movies, like in Halloween, which the cops aren't even a big focus there either, they still go out of their way and show that.
They do.
They don't do it here, but I guess not too big of a deal, but it is just kind of like a small little nitpick because we constantly see cops at the scenes for these movies and none of them are ever walking around like, I can't believe they got Derek. Oh, man. You know, like,
yeah.
They got Robbie over there. I'm taking them out, man. You know, they're not storming around pissed off. Like, it's just like, oh, man. In fact, in 4, they actually make fun of it. They're like, shit, man. Am I next?
Yeah.
You know, don't say you're coming back.
Essentially,
you may not, but yeah, you get the point. But that then turns into Gail and Dewey meeting for the first time. We got to see a little interaction there. Again, this is probably one of the better parts of the film because it's two actors who know these characters very well. They're even playing, I think, like one of the soundtracks from.
I think they're playing Dewey's soundtrack.
Yeah, Dewey's soundtrack. You're hearing like very nostalgic. This right here is Scream. This right here is Scream for sure. And Radio Silence did the fact that they're able to capture that is, bravo to them.
Yeah, they did a good job for sure.
But you get that whole story there with Gail and how it was actually Dewey who left. It wasn't Gail who broke things off. He couldn't, I guess, in his words, hack it in New York. Just a big, huge misunderstanding. So that sucks for them. They break away. Sam and Dewey break away and they go to the hospital because no one's watching Tara. They're all there for the sheriff. And Once they get there, they find out that Tara's already been attacked. Richie had got there before. We're assuming that Sam must have called him off screen, I guess. Maybe he says that Sam called him. I can't remember for sure. We just know he gets knocked out pretty easily.
He does, which is pretty funny.
Dewey comes in. He helps Richie off the ground. Sam goes and gets Tara. I think Dewey actually lays Ghostface out. And this is where they break up because Dewey leaves the three. Because what Sidney always used to say, he repeats right here and says, you got to shoot him in the head. So
Yep.
I think actually Randy was the very first person to say it in movie 1, but Sidney usually says it afterwards. So Dewey repeats that line. He goes in, and I remember you were shaking in the theaters when this happened.
I got so mad and so sad. I was ready to get up and leave.
Yeah.
I actually debated on looking at you and being like, I'm gone. Let's leave.
Yeah.
Let's go now. The way that they killed Dewey hurt because he got stabbed, knife gets turned, goes up his gut, and you literally watch him get gutted.
Was his back to you, remember?
Yeah.
I don't know where she got the second knife from, but she stabbed, it was Amber, by the way.
Strong little motherfucker.
Yeah, stabbed him and literally turned it and then went.
Sliced up.
I think you actually see his guts like spill out. Like it just shoots out because like how big of a wound it was.
Yeah.
And then she actually says the line from the trailer, which the trailer actually had made us thought that when she's talking to Ghostface is talking to Sidney, where he says it's an honor. But no, the line is actually reserved for Dewey. It's an honor to kill him.
Yeah.
So it sucks. I get it. It had to be a bad death because this dude has survived so much.
He has.
We're talking gunshot wounds. We're talking knives. He was stabbed
knives
like
in places that shouldn't have been gone. He shouldn't have been walking us straight or as well as he would during the last few films.
He's been beaten up, thrown off shit.
If he stayed alive in this film, like I know a lot of people make fun of the fact that Sidney has been alive for so long, but considering what Dewey's been through, if he stayed alive after this film, then there really was like character armor on Dewey for sure. So it was necessary, but watching it play out on screen for the first time, I was very sad. It took a lot for the movie to win me back. And I mean, it definitely did, but it still wasn't easy.
I don't think Scream really... You had kind of a weird opinion on... And I don't mean weird in a bad way, just... You yourself kind of had a weird opinion on Scream 5. And then... I think Scream 6 is what brought it back for you. Right? Because I think you liked Scream 5, but it wasn't something you could rewatch over and over.
No.
Not when we first bought it anyways.
No, definitely not. And it's definitely because of Dewey's kill for sure. My biggest critique for that, and I guess I'll dive into it now since we're talking about it, during the time anyway before 6 came out, was that movie 5 seems to be just a more modernized version of movie 4, where these two kids meet each other online, they orchestrate this whole thing, want to create their own movie and so on and so forth, and the only difference is that they have more modern tools to use. But before I dive in further into that and we deviate, I'm just going to pull it back to the point of the story that we were at. Once all this happens, and essentially Dewey's been killed the way that he was, Sam very much gets shaken up because she watches this whole thing in an elevator while holding Tara. She wants to take her sister out of town, out of this mess, back to Modesto, and she gets Tara to pack everything up. Along the way, Tara's looking for an inhaler because she's just been through so much and she has asthma and she can't find it. She says something interesting in the car when Richie and Sam are in it, which is that she keeps an extra inhaler at Amber's house, meaning that she's at Amber's house a lot. Yeah. So this also feeds into something else, like another line tossed into the movie, like later on down. But I'll make it come full circle again whenever we get down to it.
You forgot the part where Sydney pulls up into the hospital.
Yes.
She connects with Gail. And they actually tried to get Sam to go on a manhunt.
Yes.
And take out Ghostface. But they say, fuck no. They want to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And this is where Sydney actually takes a play out of Gail's book and puts a tracker on the car. And funny enough, that's actually how she gets to Amber's house, is because she recognizes the address on the tracker, and it is
Stumacher's house.
Yeah. Which, by the way, if you're a fan and if you're in, like, I guess the Bay Area, because it probably would be closer to you guys, you can actually rent out Stu's house.
Yeah.
As an Airbnb situation. We can do it, but it's like a 7-hour drive from us, or like a 6-hour drive.
I think it's a 6-hour drive. There was one day where I was willing to do it because I think they were opening up the house or the property for tours. But at the same time, looking at it now, I probably was fucking crazy and didn't realize what I was doing, what was going to do. But anyway.
But after they find out that it's Stu's place, everyone pretty much gets to the house. Tara, Sam, and Richie get there first. This is where like the real showdown finally begins.
Mind you, there's a whole party happening very similarly to Stu in movie 1. Amber even goes downstairs to the garage and has a whole jump scare with Mindy, and they have this weird exchange about who could be the killer.
Yeah.
One could even argue that before Mindy and Amber go back upstairs, when Mindy decides to go first, Amber is staring her down while she's turning her back towards her. While Mindy is turning her back towards her. And looking back at it, like watching it the first time, you could think that it's doubt. But looking back at it now, to me, I could tell that she was really contemplating on just slicing her throat right there. But she just decided not to.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is also where Liv and Chad not really break up, but they have like a different of opinions. Chad doesn't really want to get his dick wet while there's a killer on the loose.
Yeah.
Liv ain't down for that. So she kind of disappears for a little bit of the movie until we get to the monologue scene. And Chad, I think, goes out looking for her. And that's where Chad gets stabbed. Because Chad's, if you're counting Scream 6, which again, we'll get to later, he's kind of become the new Dewey. He gets stabbed a lot and still survives. So yeah, he got attacked here. He gets stabbed. He's kind of written out for the rest of the movie until we see him later in the ambulance scene. So there's Chad. Sorry, Chad. So we cut back to the house. That's where Sydney and Gail are slowly approaching. Now it's like Amber, Tara. Pretty much most of the house is cleared out. Mindy is watching Stab, the very first movie. They have actually a little cool callback there where Ghostface pulls up on her and she's like telling like the TV, you know, she's telling Randy move, you know.
Exactly like how Randy was doing it with Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween.
But she actually, being a little bit smarter than Randy, I guess, looks and goes, oh shit. And then like there's Ghostface.
Yep.
That's what kicks off the attack. I think Sam is the one who comes in first. Then we have the whole like whodunit. Amber pulls up, Liv pulls up, Richie pulls up. Everyone's freaking out. Where was who? Who did this? Mindy's been sliced right here. What's going on? They try to pin it, or at least Amber tries to pin it on Liv, and they have this cool scene like this. It's very like grunge, grindhouse film style, where it's almost like you can tell this was like hand cam, like someone is on one take, where they show Liv getting shot, and then it cuts to Amber saying, yeah, I know you're not the killer because I'm the one, and she's holding the gun. And it was a very grindhouse style, like almost homemade shot. It looked very cool.
I loved it.
Yeah, it looks very dope. And the way it kind of just zooms in on Amber holding the Glock, man, it looked really dope. So Amber's revealed to be one Ghostface so
of
far.
The two, yeah.
So Amber goes crazy. She goes after Tara. Sam and Richie end up hiding for a split second. Sam's like, no, fuck this. She's my sister. Runs out. I think Richie even tried to like pin it on Tara as well, that Tara and Amber are the killers, but Sam doesn't fucking buy it. So she goes out there. Sydney and Gail pull up. Sydney and Gail are not playing with Amber. They can see right through her shit. She pops Gail. Sydney and Gail run in. Amber at this point has just like disappeared. We assume she's looking for Tara.
Yep.
Now, Sydney runs into Richie, and this is where we get revealed to the second Ghostface. And I actually thought it was kind of funny when Richie is running down the stairs, and Sydney's like, get the gun. He's like, yeah, kind of hard because you shot me in the leg. I actually thought that was pretty funny. So he runs down. Sam is the one who gets the gun, and then Richie says, thank God you got the gun. Boom. Thank God you're still alive because I wanted to be the one to kill you. So now Richie for sure revealed as the second Ghostface. We get to the whole monologue scene. They say this verbatim that they're huge Stab fans and they met on subreddit. I'm not fucking joking with you.
Yep.
So that's how they met. Amber lived at Stu Macher's house. I guess that really gave Richie a hard on. But can we please talk about Richie's not like us, bro.
No.
Because I heard he's trying to strike a chord and it was A minor, bro. Amber is not 18.
No.
And it's very much implied that
they were talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think she even kind of makes a little comment about like him and Sam and like it's
how she can do it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So that happens. And the whole thing is like almost like a reverse of the first film where they want to paint Sam as the villain because her dad is Billy Loomis, so it makes sense for her to go crazy.
They kind of dive into the whole story about how, and sorry to cut you off, how
no, go. I was about to give it to you.
How essentially they found out that Sam is Billy Loomis's daughter, and is because Tara and Sam's mom is a big drunk, which ties into how Charlie calling in earlier in the movie being part of the AA group that Tara's mom was in. So Tara's mom and Sam's mom is a big drunk, blabbers around town about how she went around and fooled around with Billy Loomis. Amber, being the obsessive individual that she is, ends up on subreddit, and then Richie catches on to the fact that she lives in Sue Macher's house, which again ties them all together, like you mentioned earlier. So that's where they get the bright idea of making their own requel, a solid requel, because throughout the film, and this is something that you and I kind of glossed over, it's constantly mentioned that within this universe, they've created a Stab 8 and it's a requel, and that the fans hate it. They absolutely despise it. Yeah. I believe they even say how Jordan Peele may have had like a hand in it, but still the movie didn't turn out that great. So
no, it was the director from Knives Out, Rian Johnson, also the Last Jedi director. Which my friend Mark believes that they were kind of like, I don't think Radio Science dislikes Rian Johnson, but they were kind of like taking a little nudge, a little fun jab. Little fun jab at Rian Johnson for The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Because Knives Out's good, but I just don't think Rian Johnson was a good fit for Star Wars.
I don't think so either. But never mind then. It was Rian Johnson. So that's where I guess Amber and Richie kind of take the bright idea of making their own, and they're actually succeeding. This is the two most recent Screams are the only Scream movies that I have actually thought that the final characters could potentially get it at any point in time. Because watching the movie the first time, I thought that either Gail or Sydney are not going to make it out of this. But to my surprise, they did. Anyway, both Gail and Cindy get wounded. They get taken out of the picture for a while. And Sam is left to try and fend both off the ghost faces for a certain period of time. That Gail and Sydney collect themselves. They corner Amber off into one point, and Sam's dealing with Richie. The two injured legacy characters are taking on the newer one. And Amber's fucking crazy, bruh. She's switching personalities left and right. Sydney and Gail can see through the more like innocent version one, while the real one seems to be coming out. Amber gets the best of Gail for a split second and seems to be choking her out. And Amber throws in this line of saying like how she did in Dewey and how she can't believe she'll be able to do in both of them. And that's where Sydney comes, bashes like a glass jar of hand sanitizer over her head. And Amber reacting to all the shit that these two older ladies are doing is fucking hilarious. Because her, like, when she gets bashed in the head with hand sanitizer, she literally says, "The fucking hand sanitizer."
And you see it all over her face, bro. It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. And you know they have a big ass jar of hand sanitizer because in that universe they also went through COVID. Ain't nobody has that big of a bottle of hand sanitizer in their house unless they went through COVID. But again, I digress.
Also, Sydney seems to have lost her hands in this.
Yes.
I'm assuming maybe it's just because she settled down. It has, I guess, been like 10, 11 years? The last attack was in 2011. So, like 10 years. Yeah. So, I guess that's maybe the logic that she's kind of settled down. She's not on the...
Kind of. I would like to argue against that because earlier in the movie, whenever Dewey's on the phone with her, Dewey asks her if she has a gun, and she says, "I'm Sydney fucking Prescott. Of course I have a gun."
Yeah, and she was working out too. So
she has no excuses, but again, that's neither here nor there.
But yeah, she lost her hands in this movie because they were not there, man. So.
No, it took two of them to take over Amber. I think they finally knock her out in one way or form, and the two, like Gail and Sydney, just kind of lay down, and movie cuts to Richie and Sam going at it. Sam kind of turns the table on Richie. No, Amber still gets up. I think Sydney and Gail get knocked out. Amber gets up, and then this is when Richie tells Amber, hey, go get Tara. But this is where they find out that Tara's been untied.
I believe so. And then I do know they get up, though, because they're the ones who do take Tara out. I mean, it takes Amber out.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
with the stove and shit.
I think, like, Tara knocks out Amber in one way or form, in which she ends up back into Gail and Sydney's hands, and they take her out completely. The hand sanitizer being bashed on her head comes into play with them turning on the gas stove and her lighting up almost instantaneously, which I think is rather crazy because alcohol and hand sanitizer usually evaporates within a minute or two, and that had been on her for a while, but...
Either that
timing.
Either that or unless we have the scenes mixed up.
Probably.
Either
one
way.
of the two. But anyway, now that everything happened with Gail and Sydney and Amber, Sam seems to be like reversing the cards on Richie, where Tara's calling the landline that Amber has. Richie picks up the phone. You have Ghostface on the line. Sam is hunting Richie down, finally gets him, knocks him out. He tumbles down the flight of very same stairs that Sam does, and then she just lays him out and ends up stabbing him on multiple occasions, slices his throat.
22 times, supposedly.
And shoots him in the head.
No, doesn't shoot him in the head. Slices his throat.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Oh, slices his throat.
Mm-hmm. But she has that badass line of, don't fuck with the daughter of a serial killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... But, see, I think this is where Sam works the best, because earlier in the movie, man, it was brutal when she had to cry. And I like Melissa Barrera a lot, but she really got outshined by Jenna Ortega in that scene.
She did.
It was kind of sad to see, but Jenna Ortega had a lot of experience already. She's been in dramas. She's been in those type of situations. I don't know what type of movies Melissa Barrera did before this one. I know she had been in a couple, but...
I think Jenna Ortega was in X before this, right? Or during?
It was around this time frame.
Yeah.
She was also in You, too.
Yeah.
The Netflix show. Season 3, I believe. But, no. Yeah, season 2, actually. But regardless of all that, it was very hard. You can tell she's not really good with the... Vulnerable, nothing act. She's definitely more of the badass role. And she came into her own at the end there. And she definitely... I don't even want to compare her to Sydney, but it was somebody who I feel like if Sydney was to pass the torch to somebody, it would be her. Because she definitely kicked some ass at that scene there. And
Melissa does a very good job.
Yeah, she killed the fuck out of Richie, bro.
Definitely. You have no question in your mind that he's dead. I mean, once he's finally dead and all the characters start to relax a bit, Amber... I mean, you have Scream doing the classic thing where one of the two ghost faces shoot up. So Amber wakes back up, shoots back up, after being shot and burned alive, to try and get one of the 4 final girls. And that's when she finally gets shot in the head. So that's where I got confused. But anyway, overall, I feel like Scream 5 or 2022 is pretty much a decent film. It definitely gives its homages and its tips of the hat to the older films, and it definitely made Scream relevant again. Scream very much became a household name and a household movie more than it was before. I won't say its popularity died down, but I do feel like as time passed, it started carrying more of a cult following versus having a pop culture feel, because I feel like leading up to the release of the movie, and then when the movie released, that's when a lot of Ghostface merch was being released, and you had even Meg Thee Stallion doing Ghostface nails, and everybody had Ghostface nails around Halloween time at one point. I saw the masks of different varieties being sold at fucking Spirit Halloween or Party City, so you saw an upsurge of that for sure.
Hot Topic.
Definitely. It did a good job of keeping some of the charm of the older films without going too crazy with the newer trends. The film even made fun of the idea of elevated horror, which I thought was pretty funny. Because during the opening scene, when Tara's listing off all the movies that she watches, they're very much new gen, except for Babadook.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was a very nice, refreshing taste of how a meta movie could be in current days, in the 2020 eras. And I enjoyed it. Did I enjoy it as much before Scream 6 coming out? Now? Not really, but it still had its own charm. Now, when I'm watching it back to back, like Scream 5 or 2022 and Scream 6, I can't not do that. I can't watch 5 as its own. It
Like,
has to go along
yeah.
with 6.
Especially with Richie and what
Yeah.
we get into with 6. It just bleeds way too much into... I mean, Richie and 5, it just bleeds way too much into 6. But either way, I think I'll give my 2 rankings of this. 2 rankings as in what I saw the very first time in theaters and the second rewatch at home. And then the ranking of watching it after 6 came out.
Yeah.
So the first ranking would probably be like a 6 out of 10. Maybe just because of some of the kills, I could say like maybe a 6.5, but 6 out of 10. Like, I don't want to say it's like average, but just a little bit above average. So 6 out of 10. But with the inclusion of Scream 6, it bumps it up to like a solid 7.5 out of 10. So,
Yeah.
So pretty decent film because it just helps make a lot of what happens in Scream 5 make more sense. A lot of the stuff that Richie says, the motive, how things are done, it just makes a lot more sense.
It doesn't feel so much like a copycat film. There's a
or like
story
an
behind
ass
it.
pull or something, you know.
Yeah.
So even though I don't really like the word ass pull, but regardless, let's go ahead and get into Scream 6.
Yeah.
It's funny because this movie, I think, makes Scream 5 better. And we said this a lot earlier in the recording. It's very interesting how that happened. It's not too uncommon when it comes to direct sequels, especially when you have the same, I think, entire team working on this movie. I think the same guy who scored Scream 5 came back. Radio Silence was back. You had all the actors. They were back. Like, it was...
You had new characters, but they weren't, like, too...
Yeah. It was very much a direct sequel to this. And I think you said it a second ago, is that you kind of have to watch 5 and 6 now together. Yes. You kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, if you want the experience to be a whole lot better, because I guess you can watch them as their own entities, but the fact that 6 always referenced back to 2022 or Scream 5, it just coincides with you watching the two as a set, if you will.
Yes. And yeah, it's more fun that way. And I think Scream 6 is definitely probably one of the best Scream movies since probably the original.
Yeah.
That's probably up for debate. I know people love 2 a lot. There's a lot of love for 3 and 4 recently, but I think as far as at least how the film looks, the things they tried new, the kills, Scream 6 is definitely up there. But let's go ahead and get into it. So the movie opens up with a woman waiting for her blind date. This woman is played by Samara Weaving, who we last talked about in Ready or Not.
Yeah, we did.
Crushed that fucking role. She's phenomenal. And they kind of went back to their roots here. Scream 1, Scream 2, even Scream 3 kind of did the thing where, you know, let's have a pretty known actress or actor come in and they kill them off. Yep. Scream 1 was Drew Barrymore. Scream 2 was Jada Pinkett Smith. Yep. And then Scream 3 was the actor for Cotton Weary. I forget his name, but he was already getting pretty big at that point in his career with the X-Men films.
I was about to say, you mentioned that he needed to break away for the X-Men and things like
doing
that.
Doing Sabretooth and doing stuff like that. So it was cool that he was getting his... win there, so that's what they did, and they brought that back here because in 5, Jenna Ortega is a very popular actress, but she was a main character. Yeah, and what you pointed out, she's the first person to stay alive after an opening attack. Yeah, so this one they brought back to the roots. A very popular actress coming in, Samara Weaving, and as you mentioned, she has a heavy Aussie accent, but I actually think she is
Australian. I know, which is like astonishing. I think you and I kind of marked out for a moment because I was like, wait, what if she actually is Australian and Ready or Not, she was putting on an American accent? And if that's the case, that shows her versatility. Yeah, and if we're wrong, sorry. I think I remember her reading that she's Australian, but I could be wrong. I haven't watched interviews with her, which I probably should. So. Yeah, she's great. I think you and I both mentioned it. She's up there with like Jenna and Melissa as far as being Scream Queens. Also, the other girl too, the one from Lisa Frankenstein. Yes. Ant-Man and we just watched Abigail. Yeah. Abigail. So anyway, so she goes on to ultimately get killed by one of her students who catfished her, kind of. That was pretty funny, honestly. It's not mentioned at this point, but it's mentioned later on that he killed her because she flunked him, right? She gave him a C-, so that's not flunking. Yeah. That's just a lower grade. And no offense to my fellow brown folk, but us brown people, we can't go home with anything lower than an A-. So,
I've heard that, yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I know it's not just brown folk. It's just like most parents too. I just know it's very integrated into the culture, and I've been made fun of it before.
there's a lot more pressure on you guys to excel, to not just rival people who were born here, but to also do better. You know, it's very much they turn it into like a competition with the family, you know? So especially if you have siblings. So
I've talked to you about this a lot.
Yeah. But you can go ahead and get into the fact that this was a very different Ghostface kill and how that leads into everything else.
Like MJ said, like she was killed by one of her students. We come to find out that she's a professor at a Sound University in New York, and what she teaches, ironically enough, is horror movies.
Specifically slashers,
which is the irony of it all. This kid, later on we come to find out, named Jason, is posing on the phone as like her blind date. And I don't know, as like an audience member, whenever you're watching this, you can just tell that this new Ghostface is, I don't know, it's either their first kill or they're just really, really nervous.
There's like no aura there.
None. I mean, in the beginning, you could attribute it to the fact that it's a blind date. It's two people who've never met each other in person, meeting each other at the first time. He doesn't really seem to know what he's doing, but as the call keeps progressing, you can hear the confidence building.
Yes.
It takes this professor stepping out and looking down into an alleyway and actually walking down in an alleyway where, more likely than not, this is when it clicks in Jason's head, like he actually can get away with this, when he switches over to Ghostface and you have the classic Ghostface come into play, really.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He did have that cool line, though, the whole, like, what was it? It's sad that you teach a film about slashers and you still wandered into
a
dark alley,
and lonely alleyway. And that builds the tension because, like, you're sitting back and, like, me watching Scream 6 for the first time, I'm like, yeah, bro, like, I go around here and I'm saying I wouldn't do the same shit that these dumb folks are doing in the horror films. But, like, in real life, you could easily slip up, even if you get a major in horror, specifically slashers. But what's interesting is that once the kill happens, and I remember you and I having the same reaction in the movie theaters, this is the first time we see a Ghostface fake out this early in the film, within the opening scene.
Oh, like they unmasked themselves in the opening scene.
Exactly. You have Ghostface, like, once he killed the professor, squats down, does the classic, like, head tilt, but instead of there being the movie card, Jason takes the mask off. And he's staring at the professor.
When we watched this in theaters, my reaction, because I had low expectations.
I did too.
From Scream 5.
Yeah.
The trailers were really good, but so were Scream 5's trailers.
Yeah.
So I had low expectations. So I thought this no aura Ghostface was going to be our Ghostface for this movie.
Same.
So when he squatted down, I was like, okay, so that's how they're switching up the opening scene. We're gonna follow along Ghostface's point of view, maybe. Like we're gonna see what happens.
That's what we were told before the movie came out, that this film was gonna take what we consider classics of the franchise and take a spin on it. We didn't know exactly what that meant. Because if you go back and you watch Scream 4 does the same thing, where it's constant fake outs. It's movie within a movie within a movie. It's very meta.
It's like Stab 7, like down to the
down to the most recent one. And after, like, round 3, at, like, me watching it for the first time, I'm sitting and going, like, okay, when's the real kill gonna come on? Like, truly. And it finally does. Like, don't get me wrong, but this was on another level. Yeah,
no, I feel you. And I think the expectation that we had of, like, following this Ghostface was actually surpassed once we find out what happened. So the story continues where Jason and his roommate plan to kill Sam and Tara. Funny enough, when Jason comes across Tara and her friends going to some, like, college party, he's very insistent on Sam being there.
Yes.
Very insistent.
He finds out that Tara is going to a certain frat party and then seems to be hounding Tara on whether or not Sam's going to show up. And Tara says an interesting remark, which kind of foreshadows to the two of their relationship, but we'll dive down that road in just a bit.
So then he goes back to his place, and at this point, Jason is killed by the real Ghostface. Now, it's interesting because this Ghostface seems to be very focused on keeping Jason in the apartment, especially after describing how the kill felt. When Ghostface confronts this Jason, he actually mentions what Jason had brought up earlier in a phone call when he thought he was talking to his friend, was that when he killed the professor, it felt like she was just meat.
The more times her knife would go in, or his knife would go in, the more she was less human and the less she was human and the more meat she was like.
Yes, and this Ghostface reiterates that, and this Ghostface had aura. Now, this felt like the Ghostface that is
petrifying, terrifying. Like, I can hear the sinister chuckle, this dark smile behind the mask, through the voice on the phone. Like, I was captivated immediately.
And we're gonna keep it a buck with you, just like we were with Scream 5. We've seen this movie a lot. I think we saw it twice in theaters, right?
Twice in theaters, and I think you and I bought it right when it came out.
Bought it right when it came out, and we've watched it like 3 to 5 times since it came out.
Yeah.
So, spoiler warning. I'm just gonna say it. We're pretty sure. I haven't looked up actual in-depth confirmation of the kills, but I'm pretty sure this is the dad.
Yeah.
And we can tell that this is Detective Bailey just because of the fact of his speech patterns.
Because when you watch throughout the movie, whenever he gets very invested, it's almost like he pauses at the same moments that the Ghostface does in the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
Plus, to also add into that fact, who could have planted the ID before the rest of the cops showed up?
Yes, and how would this person have also known that Jason and his roommate Greg met when they were in, I guess,
grade school,
junior high, probably where Richie went to school. So
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. Plus, I feel like the little nods of the teacher killing the teacher, it made her feel like me. That probably pissed him off because it made him think of his son who was stabbed 22 times. Also, he's a cop too, so I'm sure
he doesn't condone murders.
Yeah, in his own twisted and revenge idea, he condones what he's doing, but what these other people are doing. Really? Because I think he calls him out. You're going to kill your professor over a C.
Yeah, he even says, what's next? Your grade school vice principal?
Yeah, so you can tell it's the cop kind of coming out of him, very much interrogating style.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can tell that is Detective Bailey.
One thing that you and I almost forgot, and I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, go for it.
And it's that Jason, whenever he's first on the phone with who he thinks is his roommate, just using the Ghostface mask, he states his motive in the very beginning, which is he wants to finish the movie that Richie started.
Yes.
So that's the reason why he even went out to practice. But the reason behind him killing his professor was also because of the C- that she gave him. He was still very much spiteful because of that. Yeah. So I guess fast forward to the kill and so on and so forth. Because before Jason gets killed, he opens up the fridge and he sees his roommate just torn apart.
I forgot about that.
And thrown into the fridge like actual meat.
Yeah,
so
on some Chainsaw Massacre shit, bro.
There was a lot of irony to it because Ghostface is also stabbing Jason, saying, "Now do you feel like meat?" And then that's whenever we get the title card and it cuts to the film being the way that it is.
So Chad, Mindy, Sam, and Tara have all moved to New York, as we mentioned earlier, where Tara was already seen going to that party.
Yep.
Now living with their roommates, Quinn, Annika, and Ethan. Annika also being, I think, the girlfriend to Mindy.
Mindy, yes.
Yes. So Chad and Mindy seem to be living on their own. Sam is attending this weird therapy session, so she's not with the rest of the group.
Nope.
I say weird just because it's kind of interesting that when she mentions that, this is how I stabbed and killed Richie, the therapist's tone almost kind of changes. I thought this was weird because I'm not going to get into it, but I've had a relative who had to deal with the law and was forced to go to therapy afterwards. I don't know if Sam was forced to go. I don't think she was.
No.
But regardless of that fact, this is all over the news, it seems.
And it seems to be all over the internet.
Over the internet. I can probably buy him not knowing about the memes of her being the mastermind. But he, I think, would have to at least have known what she did.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure, and I mean, I'm not a therapist and I haven't gone through that kind of training, but I'm pretty sure you're supposed to do a bit of research before your client comes in.
Yeah.
Just so this way you can get an idea. But who knows, maybe the new gen therapists aren't supposed to build that kind of bias, so they leave it alone until the person comes in.
Maybe, yeah. Or if she was sent there by law, he would get her file immediately on what happened. So
yeah.
It just felt very weird that hearing what she did turned him so completely off that he was literally about to call the cops on her and let them know what she just said. I don't know. I just feel like I've seen situations in real life and I've also seen stuff in movies where therapists are told a lot worse.
Yeah.
And it doesn't faze them. So it was very interesting to see that.
I feel like he was a bit scared because, I mean, Sam or Samantha seems to be more of like I won't say small because she's not tiny. You can tell that she has muscles on her, but she's smaller than like most average girls, if you will, who could overcome a guy and like stab him literally 22 times, like how she said.
It's funny
and
that
slit his throat.
It's funny that she literally mentioned 22 times.
Which is very specific. So she either counted while she was doing it or she counted while she was reliving it. So that could also kind of play into the twistedness of her mind, and in turn could give him a little bit more credit as to why he freaked out so quickly, because not many people really keep count of how many times they stab someone unless... Or
she was told later at the police station.
Yeah. So, like, either way, he may have rightfully reacted in the way that he did, but seeing him shut down, like, you can visibly see him become more and more comfortable as the conversation continues. It's not fun as an audience member, let alone for Sam, who's going through that therapy session. And you can tell she's ran through therapists too, because she even says at one point before getting up, "You're just like the rest of them."
I think it's also supposed to set the tone too of what the movie's supposed to be like when it comes to people's perception of Sam. But at the same time, though, I just think it probably could have been handled a little bit better. But it's such a small part of the movie. I don't really think it takes points away from it. It's just something to make knowledge of. Yeah. But we didn't head over to the party, but I'll let you take over.
Yeah, well, I mean, the movie then, whenever Sam leaves, she calls Tara, and then that's when the movie cuts to the party that Tara's attending. And you see a drunken Tara is about to get raped, I guess. Yeah. R-word. Yeah. But Chad and Sam come to save the day, Chad being the one who starts picking a fight with the guy, while Sam comes around and does her badass thing by tasing said date raper in the balls.
I'm just going to tase you in the balls real quick.
Yeah, he's like, oh, the boys, hold on. I'm going to tase you in the balls real quick. And then done. Funny enough, like, this is something that you and I didn't talk about before, and I've caught a few times during our most recent rewatches, is that once she's done tasing this guy, I think they call him Date Rape Freddy or Fred or Frankie or whatever the fuck. So after she tases Frankie, shortly after within the crowd, there's this one girl that says, "Oh shit, it's her." And then everybody else starts chiming in and saying, "Yo, it's that psycho girl." Yeah. And that kind of bleeds into the next scene where they're all walking down this walkway. I'm not too familiar with New York, so I don't know where it's at, but any New Yorker will know exactly. Yeah. They're walking through a park. Chad, Tara, I think Mindy's also there.
And Annika, the whole group. Yeah.
Sam, and even Ethan. They're all walking down. But first, Tara and Sam have this little like fallout, if you will. Before all that happens, or I guess after all that happens, Sam is about to run after Tara when Tara gets the last word, when this one bitch comes up and like splashes coke all over her and calls her a psycho. Yeah. And that's where you can tell that Sam's been dealing with this for a while. Like, she even brings it up to the therapist earlier that there's a whole page dedicated online on social media talking shit and like creating theories about how she killed Richie and how she masterminded and everything, which is what you kind of mentioned earlier that he should have probably known, being on social media in today's current age. Yeah. But I mean, ultimately, going back to the fight, Tara seems to be giving her piece. Like, she's just saying her part, essentially going off on Sam.
Which you can tell it is like the ramblings of a drunk person.
Definitely.
Like, when I first watched it, I was like, I mean, come on, like, Sam slapped the shit out of her. But then I thought, well, no, you when you hear it, like, that's very much like when a drunk person argues with you. They'll bring up something, even though they know it can be rebuttal within 5 seconds. But they're so slurred and they keep talking, you can't really get a word in. So you just let them ramble on.
Exactly.
And that's pretty much what this was.
And I think that's what Sam recognized. Like, sure, Tara may have been truly upset and some of the things were true in her mind, but overall, it was a little bit overly exaggerated. But however, this is something that I caught in our most recent rewatch, and it was that when the girl is done calling Sam a murderer and splashing the whole drink all over her body, Ethan seems to be the only one in the background who doesn't rush to Sam to hold her back from starting a fight with this random girl. You could attribute him to not really knowing Sam all too much, or not being too familiar with Sam, or just overall like believing in the theories. But even Tara, after just having this fight, still pulls Sam back. Yeah. Too. So it's just kind of like, okay, Annika was even involved in pulling Sam back, but Ethan didn't. So it was really weird.
We also forgot to mention before Sam went to the party, she actually went and
talked to Quinn
back to her place.
Yeah.
And that's where we find out that Quinn's, I guess, sex positive. In other words, everyone thinks that this reputation of her is just constantly fucking.
Yeah.
Which I didn't think too much of it, but now that I think about it, that could also be her way of getting away from the girls and not having to be around Sam and Tara, especially Sam so much.
Yeah.
And also just allows her to stay in her room more because obviously we know what her and her family are planning. So
yeah, now.
So a lot more that kind of goes in depth with that rather than just her wanting to have sex a lot. Maybe she does like it, but it's like another reason for her to be stuck in her room more often than she needs to be.
Yeah.
So you have that going on. Then once we get back to where you ended off with the park and everything, we see the effects that the killings have had on the group, especially Sam and Tara. We also kind of see how Chad and Tara have become pretty close. I'm assuming probably ever since they moved to New York.
Probably.
Yeah. So Sam wants to face the tragedy head on while Tara kind of wants to avoid it. And you still kind of see that with the way Tara reacts to things even at the apartment. So, and something you pointed out, the only ones who really seem to be dealing with it in a healthy way are Chad and Mindy.
Yeah, I mean, inadvertently, we don't know for sure, but yeah.
At least from what they displayed, which is kind of, here's a little cool tidbit that we haven't brought up yet, which is kind of a little cool nod and a reverse of the Randy situation, because in Scream 2, back at college, Randy wasn't dealing with the situation well. He actually was trying to avoid it and not think it had anything to do with him.
Very similar to Tara.
Whereas in this one, his niece and nephew are actually the ones who are calm, cool, collected, at least for the most part. We don't really know what they were really thinking, but as far as the way the movies presented it, they were the calmest of the bunch, you know?
Definitely.
So I'll let you talk about what happens in the bedroom.
So Chad and Tara kind of break away. They connect in a cute way, meaning they nearly kiss. Quinn walks in and kind of like breaks it up by, I guess, accident. Probably not, but it's perceived to be an accident.
Cock blocks them.
Yeah. Repeats it on multiple occasions, which really gets Chad to get up and run out. But Tara just kind of lays down. But I think everybody at one point seems to be doing their own thing in the apartment, and Sam just kind of breaks away just to have her breathing room. She's checking the mail in her apartment complex when all of a sudden this guy like runs up to her and they do this whole like dramatic makeout scene, and we come to find out this is Sam's secret lover.
Kind of like her little way of coping with things, maybe.
Yeah, more likely than not, like a cute little distraction, if you will, literally and metaphorically. Mid-conversation with this lover, who we come to find out later is named Danny, Chad runs into the hallway, the stairway, yelling down towards the lobby, saying, like, come watch the news. That's when Sam runs up. I think Danny stays behind.
No, he runs up too.
Oh, he runs up too, I guess.
That's at least the jokes are like, what's Pretty Boy doing here? Or like, what's Pretty Boy across the street doing here? Or something like that.
Yeah, okay. No, you're not wrong there. So the both of them run up and the TV's on. And the TV essentially is just covering all the murders that have just recently happened throughout New York. And Sam was about ready to pack up when she gets a call from the station and is questioned about it and why she was even there, because her ID's found at the crime scene, like at Jason's dormitory or apartment complex. And that's where things get really, really sticky. When the call comes in, though, everybody, even Quinn, jumps from their phone ringing. The only person who doesn't jump is Ethan.
Yeah.
And that's something that kind of feeds into the theory that's built with the characters in the movie. I feel like that point, knowing what we know now and how many times we watched the film, Quinn seems to be the one to really sell her role of being really ignorant, while Ethan, be it consciously or subconsciously, isn't really trying to come off that ignorant.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying now when it comes to that. So after the call and the whole ID reveal, Sam and Tara, or mainly Sam, actually have to go get questioned, but Tara comes along with her, and they get attacked in a brutal scene, but not before they get a call from Richie. It's revealed that Sam never deleted his contact.
Nope.
So the person on the other line, of course, is Ghostface. Sam makes her remark about willing to kill this Ghostface if needed, which I'll talk about this right here. Sam is in her bag in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
she, like we had said earlier, she definitely fits the role of being a badass now. I think she literally says to him, like verbatim, before we get going with this, just remember the last people that fucked with my family, I killed them. Remember that?
Yeah,
so,
quite literally.
So I love her. That's very much like Sydney in like movie 2, where remember when Ghostface calls her after the party after he killed Daphne.
Yeah.
Or Sarah Michelle Gellar. She gets a call and then she's like, oh yeah, well if you think you're so tough, like why don't you come after me, asshole? And then he's like, my pleasure. And then that's when you get the kickoff. So we're getting the Sam who's not afraid.
A lot of parallels.
Yeah, this Sam is ready to kick ass and take some names.
Yeah.
So after she makes that remark, this Ghostface seems to be focused on wanting to make the story right, which is alluding to the rumors and the stuff online. And
which, by the way, this is something that you and I forgot to mention earlier, and I'm sorry for interrupting again. The rumors and everything that are built online, and I don't know if you caught this whenever I wrote it down earlier, are feeding into what Amber and Richie wanted to do initially, where Sam is painted off to be this villain.
Yes.
That she's the one who orchestrated everything. She's the crazy one. And even though the two of them died, the legacy that they wanted Sam to have lived on.
It's almost like Amber and Richie were still getting their movie mate, kind of, if you will.
Well, I guess kind of going back to what you mentioned earlier, like this Ghostface really wants to make the story right. He seems to really believe what the rumors online, that Sam is a true killer and that he will expose her for it. He even throws in the line that you won't get between us before making his move on the girls, which is really interesting. At first, I didn't really think much of it, but watching the movie a couple of times with you, I picked up on it for sure.
Well, what does that even mean? I'm kind of confused on that.
Just that you won't get between us, like.
Oh, like as a group. Yeah, it's not a single Ghostface. Yeah,
because like this Ghostface seems to be focusing on the fact that there's more than one. The girls can easily like glaze over it, kind of like we did as audience members in the beginning, at least. But
I think that one of them says it again, right? Us too. So I could be
somewhere in the middle of the film. But essentially, he mentions that phrase, and the scene cuts. You see Ghostface kind of rushing up in the background, blurred, and that's when he makes his move. The whole scene then suddenly shifts over to a bodega where Sam and Tara are rushing in, and they're frantically trying to get help. Of course, New Yorkers being New Yorkers are not really giving too many shits, at least the stereotypical New Yorkers, I guess.
Yeah, at least until Ghostface actually walks through the doors.
And when Ghostface does, the tone shifts and you see Ghostface in a whole new light. At first, he's using the classic knife and he's stabbing away, and whenever he
kills like 3 civilians real quick.
Very easily. And then you have the shop owner pull out a shotgun ready to use it, but instead, Ghostface figures out a way to get it into his hands. And this is the first time we see a Ghostface use a gun this early on in the movie. Specifically, a fucking shotgun.
With the mask still
With
on.
the mask on. Because you and I both talked about this before. All Ghostface prior to this are always using knives until the final act.
Yeah, then everyone has like a weapon, like a gun or whatever, shotgun.
Whatever it may be. But this is the first time that this Ghostface has a shotgun this early on in the film and has their mask on. And you get to see this Ghostface go to town and really try and hunt down these girls.
The aura is completely different.
Yep.
And it's funny because remember that line where Dewey makes in Scream 5 about like something about this just feels different?
Yep.
I think that can be attributed a lot more to
this film.
Which, funny enough, maybe you could still make that argument considering Scream 6 is a direct follow-up to 5. So the killers are directly connected in a huge way, even way before than the past films.
Yep.
So once the bodega scene happens, Sam and Tara are able to barely make it through that whole situation because this Ghostface was literally just hunting his prey. Like, this dude came off like the Predator from the last
It was crazy. Yeah. Like, you can see Tara barely hanging on, like, just trying to hold on to her sanity, while Sam seems to be really blossoming and not shrinking back into herself so much. Like, she's leading, making sure Tara doesn't stay far behind. So it's pretty interesting to see the duality of the two.
Exactly, especially in a situation like that.
Mm-hmm.
So a mask is left at the crime scene, the bodega, and we come to find out at the station that another mask was left at Jason's place. These masks seem to be going in backwards order of the ghost faces that the audience are familiar with and with what happened at Woodsboro. So as an example, the mask that was left, I think, at the apartment with Jason and Greg were Richie and Amber's, I
Yes.
believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They were Richie and Amber's, and then this one was Charlie's.
Charlie's and
Yeah.
Jill's. Or I don't know if it's Jill's yet, but it was, I think, Charlie's. Sam points out at the station that her roommate's dad seems to be the one working her case. And the detective...
You and I kind of skipped over this, but once that all happened, this is... Well, whenever we find out that the scenes are left, this is at the police station.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think even before we get to the whole working the case thing, doesn't the detective try to say something about Richie? He goes like, "This a massive Richie. Does that name ring a bell?" And I think you mentioned that probably hurt him to say that.
Oh, 100%. To pretend like as if he doesn't know who Richie is. Yeah.
But going back to what I pointed out, that Sam points out at the station that her roommate's dad seems to be the one working the case.
Yep.
And he says, "No, a cop actually offered this to me since it's close to someone else, and that means his daughter, Quinn." Because unlike Ethan, Quinn actually is his daughter. They didn't change that up. They left that.
At least for the rest of the group, the core four, if you will.
Yeah. He also immediately crosses Quinn off the list of suspects because she's his daughter. So, yeah, very interesting. So, mid-interview, the Detective Bailey is interrupted by his coworker letting him know the FBI is here, and the agent is Kirby.
Kirby of all people.
We find out that they used to go to high school together and that they have a shared history.
Meaning that Tara and Kirby. Or no, Sam and Kirby.
Yeah, Sam was a freshman and Kirby was a senior. Very interesting because I remember the rumors about, is it Hayden Panettiere? Is that her name?
Whose?
Kirby's?
I think so. I'm not too familiar with actresses' names.
Revealed that she was going to be the one the new like cast member who's a legacy character. Mm-hmm. And I remember when my friend Mark and I from Real to Real Productions and the KRW network, when we were discussing this rumor, I was thinking, well, we both thought maybe she'll be like a director or like a movie goer because she was really big into movies. Yeah. But I like the route they went. Actually, I
did too.
Like this one more.
And hearing her explanation later on in the film as well.
Yes.
Really
sold me even more on it.
Yes, for sure. Like I was just like, wow, okay, that's another way of coping with it too.
Because I thought it would be cool to get like a director who isn't like a weirdo, like Roman or something like that. But this was a good route too, and I think a little bit less generic than making like a moviegoer, a director, or a film student or something. Yeah. But Quinn's dad points out that Sam and Tara can't leave due to being persons of interest in the homicide, and they're forced to stay because Sam, again, was ready to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, and this is the first time that Tara actually agrees with her and says, yes, let's go.
I actually like this because this is a very different... this is where I think Sam and Sydney actually separate a little bit because Sydney doesn't really do that. No. No matter how many times Dewey or someone tells her like, just to get out of town, she doesn't really do it. No. It took all the way up until like... not her best friend getting killed. I think Randy getting killed to when the detectives are finally going to get her out of the area. Like so, but Sam's always ready to just get the fuck out. And I actually think that's pretty smart because even though she can throw down, like she also knows Mr. Miyagi said, best way to have a fight is to avoid a fight. Yeah. So, anyways, the girls then run into Gail and the wave of reporters that are outside the station, which one of the reporters yells to Tara, "Can you trust your sister?" Which is absolutely safe around your sister. Absolutely insane, bro. Like, my God.
Fucking ridiculous. But then again, this is today's day and age of reporters, so I'm not surprised.
Now, I'm going to let you talk about this because I don't like this scene at all. This is actually where the movie doesn't get like a 10 out of 10 for me, or even like a 9.5 out of 10. So I'll let you go over the Gail stuff that happens right here because I'm just not a fan of it at all.
It's weird, man, because like you said earlier, the girls walk out. There's a wave of reporters asking so many different questions, and then all of a sudden, you see the back of one reporter, a very familiar voice ringing out, and camera panels out, and you see it's Gail. Sam then tries to pull the same move that Sydney did during movie 1, which is punching Gail in the face, and Gail kind of acknowledges, says, "Hey, this is my first round." While she's trying to diss Sam, Tara then takes a swing at her with her other hand, and that catches the whole crowd off guard.
Because Sam's supposed to be the crazy one. You know?
Sam is supposed to be the quote-unquote crazy one. And I think Gail asked her a very controversial and like a confrontational question. So then that's why Sam tried to take that swing, and then Tara followed up with it. The audience comes to find out that Gail went back on her word with Sydney in 2022, which was she would never write a book about this again. And she ended up writing a book about the whole experience that Sam went through.
Yeah.
She did the same thing to Sam as she did to Sydney, which essentially is paint her like a terrible person. I think Sam even throws out a line about how she's unstable and volatile. Gail tries to rebuttal it, but Sam says, no, it's literally a quote. You can't fake me out on this. So you can see Gail kind of get taken aback. And it's just for a split moment, it feels like Woodsboro 2.0. But at the same time, when you've watched Scream 2022 or Scream 5, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right before, it just feels very contradictory. And I get it. Gail is a very complex character, if you will. She's likable, but at the same time, not enough.
Yeah.
However, this just completely destroys her character in my eyes. And it takes a lot for me to be one back for her, with her. So I don't know if initially they were trying to go with the idea that Gail was supposed to be this versions of the movie's Ghostface, and really running with it, or if they just kind of wanted to kill her character and then kill her off too. Very similar to what Ethan tells Sam during the closing scene.
I think it probably would have been better maybe if it was something that she promised to Sam and Tara, and then maybe she goes back on her word to them. But the fact that she promised it to Sydney and then also said that
I wish I never wrote these books to begin with. And
how the next book she would write would be about, a good sheriff who would help people.
Yeah.
And then Sydney's like, I would read that.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right, bro. And I just didn't vibe with the whole,
nope,
you need Ghostface to stay relevant. It's bro, she was on a morning show. She was successful. As far as we know, I don't think Gail Weathers would live in a broken down, because I know how bad things are in the economy. I know people are actors and still trying to make ends meet by working a side job, but I highly doubt Gail fucking Weathers was on that morning show every morning and then going back to her broken up apartment. I highly doubt that. She was living at large, I'm assuming, and most likely probably dating that guy already that we see her dating now, because it's not like she's willing to get back with Dewey that easily. So it's
she still loves him. It's very obvious. She still cares for him deeply.
But she didn't go in for a kiss. She didn't go in for a, so it's just very much I don't know, man. It just feels weird that they had to throw all that in there. I just feel like it would have been better if Gail kind of came in as a friend to help them out, but either way, the next scene has the group, Sam and Tara's group, on college campus, with Mindy giving the same spill she gave last time during the last movie. I mentioned earlier in this recording, I'm not a huge fan of the, monologue, the speech that Mindy had, but in this version, Mindy's really in her bag, man. She's really bringing it forth. I like the energy she has. I like how she's kind of calling out the rest of the group. She's telling you how it is, how legacy characters aren't safe anymore. Take a look at what happened to Luke in Star Wars.
Yep.
Very true. So I
love it.
I love what she's talking here. She's making a lot of sense out of everything. Now, Mindy makes note that they're in a franchise now, not a sequel. Mindy sets the rules up for the sequels, and at one point takes a dig at Richie without naming him, and Ethan makes a face and looks away.
Which is fucking hilarious. I actually was rolling when I caught it the first time. Because obviously, first watch, you're not going to see it because you don't know who the killer is.
Yeah.
And maybe, even if you do see it, you're not going to attribute it to the fact that he's pissed off and upset and trying to control himself in front of the group.
He's been painted as an awkward kid.
You're just thinking of okay, well, fuck me. If I ever walk away from them, then they're going to talk trash about me too, right? Wrong. He's livid. We don't see the camera panel towards Quinn, and I kind of wish we did, because if we did, I feel like her reaction would be very similar as well, or if anything, I want to see how controlled she really was. So that was a very, very interesting scene for sure.
And after the camera catches the little look that Ethan does, Mindy also shares that all the legacy characters will die, again staring right at Sam, Tara, and all this and that, including Chad, which I'm sure sucked, and she knows herself as well.
Definitely.
She also does, but in the same light, though, she also says us four should be, cool, though. We're not suspects. Quickly, though, Ethan and Quinn go off on them.
They turn the conversation back onto what we later on come to learn is the term Court 4. So Mindy is just demolishing all the new bees, including Annika, her girlfriend.
Yeah.
Annika doesn't say anything at one point in time. She just becomes meek. But you have Ethan and Quinn going back and forth with the rest of the group, mainly Mindy, and not giving anybody breathing room to say anything back. Chad, I think, gets a word or two in, but then Quinn cuts him off and just says, no, like, just as equally we are suspects, so are you guys, because how can we trust you? You guys may have gone insane. You might have snapped. Ethan even kind of takes a dig at Sam and says, well, what if the rumors online really are true? And that's when Tara steps in and says, no, fuck that and fuck you, essentially.
Which is fun. I know there's a part that we kind of rubbed over real quick, but just to kind of go back to what you said about Quinn, as far as we know, or as far as the group knows, Ethan is just some random awkward kid who got lumped up with Chad.
So how the fuck are they having such a cohesive conversation, right? And that's the red flag right there. But Quinn's again, like, you can't pick up on that.
And Quinn's like the chick on the block, like, you know.
Everybody wants her.
But yet her and this awkward kid, this nerdy guy who probably never had more than a sentence of conversation together in front of these people are just going off on them. Like, very interesting. But also to Mindy's point, though, she did literally call it to a T and say Quinn and Ethan were probably the killers.
Just like Randy.
Yeah.
Just like Randy. Her intuition is fucking crazy. And she dives into it. Like, she even, I think, explains the motive to a certain extent to a T without really knowing it for sure. So it was pretty intriguing to see as somebody who's seen the movie on, like, multiple occasions. Ethan even makes fun of how Tara and Sam missed it entirely during the final act, of course.
Right.
And says that Mindy was on point. I don't know why you guys didn't listen to her. Which I guess kind of goes to show how easily the core four can be ignorant and arrogant as well.
Yeah. Detective Bailey and Kirby are having an interesting exchange about the franchise. And what I mean by franchise, more like just the killers in general. But people also have to remember when we say franchise that Stab itself also exists within this universe. So it's a movie within a movie, if you will. But they go over the Easter eggs of the franchise and they're breaking down what the killer is doing and how they're counting things down all the way to Billy Loomis.
Yep.
Now, I wanted to talk to you about something. So I've talked to my friends BG and Mark about this. And I don't know if their opinions have changed, but are they kind of like retroactively writing out that Roman was the original mastermind here? Because did you catch it in 5 when they mentioned it'll be fun to make you the killer, Sam? Can you imagine the daughter of the original mastermind of all of this is the fucking killer, right? In Scream 5. And then in here, even Kirby acknowledges Billy as like the mastermind, the original Ghostface. So
maybe a mastermind of the original Ghostface character, but not of the killings. Because, Roman planted the seed in Billy Loomis as far as, like, going and killing Maureen. But I think what they mean by mastermind is who came up with the personality, the persona.
Okay, because you feel like when Roman said he gave Billy the motivation and the targets, you're trying to say that Billy came up with the idea of Ghostface, like bought the costume, bought the voice changer.
Exactly, because it takes a while before Ghostface kind of bleeds into Billy, or Billy bleeds into Ghostface too when you're watching Scream. So I'm not going to discredit Roman either, because it's also referenced in 22 or Scream 5 that the last time something like this happened was in 2011, and prior to that was like 2008, 2009. So
because we don't, as far as we know, in the first movie, the only thing that was left behind was Cotton's jacket, right? There was nothing left behind to indicate that even Billy and Stu wore a Ghostface costume when they killed Maureen Prescott, right?
No.
So that might have been something that came a year later.
Yeah, I think because it was so close to Halloween, these kids decided to turn it into a joke and wear a costume instead, right? And especially if they're going to be hunting somebody down, they don't want to make it that obvious, because Maureen was also painted to be a semi-drunk.
Also, people forget it, but Billy is a super horror fan.
Yes.
So probably, I mean, I've had debates with Mark on this, that the whole narrative behind Randy is that Billy's actually probably more intelligent than him when it comes to horror. And him being a huge horror fan, Michael Myers, Jason, of course, him and Stu would want a mask.
I mean, even Richie kind of makes the joke that the Stab movies seem to be a lot like the Halloween movies, where there's a guy in a mask with a knife going around and killing teenagers.
Yeah, so maybe you're not wrong. Maybe, I guess, we're still supposed to look at Roman as the mastermind of the Maureen Prescott killings, but not the mastermind of the Ghostface character, if you will. So that may be the better way to look at it. If
I would like to think it's that way.
That actually might
know.
That actually might help make the movie seem a little bit better too, because if we don't give Roman the credit for the Ghostface stuff, but we give him the credit for the Marine kill, that actually might that I think that makes Scream 3 a little bit better, because we can, whenever he says I'm the one who started all this, maybe he doesn't specifically mean Ghostface. Maybe he just means the fate of him and Sydney meeting.
Essentially, yeah.
So that could be like the way to look at it to make Scream better for people. Anyways, the scene cuts to the drawing board and we see all the ghost faces, and everyone expected to be going back to Billy, which then puts Sam as the main suspect because Sam is the daughter of Billy Loomis. Yep. So Detective Bailey then may catch wind that Kirby is investigating him as well, because it's interesting. When Kirby first gets there, she's all about sharing what she's got. Yep. But then she gets a call and she has to walk away and take it, and she doesn't want to take it in front of Detective Bailey. This then makes Bailey go and gets one of his subordinates and say, hey, run a check on Kirby. So this is where you get a little... I mean, it's not too far-fetched. You and I have watched a lot of crime movies. Yes. So a lot of people who work their districts don't want higher-ups coming and taking over. No, never. FBI's and the cops are constantly painted in Hollywood as not getting along, especially... Yeah. Even Kirby makes the joke. She's like, I don't want to get into a jurisdiction pissing competition. I'll show you mine if you show me yours. But like you mentioned, this scene right here becomes a little contradictory because she actually steps away to take that private call. So it's very interesting in that way, but you could imply that maybe it just ties into Detective Bailey foreshadowing that he is Ghostface, but it could also just be that he's just worried about his job. He wants to make sure the job gets done right, so you could take it, I guess, both ways. But Chad and Tara seem to be having this chemistry between each other. And at this point in the scene, when it cuts here, is that the Core 4 nickname is set for the group. Yep. Which... It's very cute. I never realized how funny and like how you said cute it was when Chad's like, Core 4, up top. Yeah, I was like, down low. No one's giving him a high five, and it's fucking hilarious. You can see everybody has like a small smirk on their face, but they're not doing it. I wonder how much that was in a script or if that was like real, because... the whole, like, that doesn't sound like written dialogue when he goes, up top. No? Come on. Please, I'm dying here. Yeah. like, that's something I would say. Yeah. You know what I mean? I would say it too. And if it was written in the script, then goddamn that they really get Chad's character right. Yes, exactly. But I'll let you talk about this. I've been rambling a lot. No, you're fine. So once the whole Core 4 is established, the scene cuts to where... or I guess gets interrupted, where the news finally playing again in the background. And this time it seems that a reporter is going around and saying how everyone, including the cops, are believing that Sam is behind everything. Like literally everything. Now that her alibi is dead, the pussy therapist who was, freaking out about her in the beginning. The pussy therapist is insane. No one can vouch for her but her friends. So like... Did I write that in the notes? I did. Oh, you did? You said it, so I was like, all right, that has a nice little ring to it. Similar to the stab cave. You did say that for later. Anyway, I don't know. It was weird. I think even Chad and Mindy run up and tell her that, don't worry, we all know who you are truly, fuck the world. And Tara even validates what Sam is going through, saying for the first time ever, and says that, hey, no one really knows what you've been through, only you do. And I know it's lonely, but please understand you do have a decent support system, which in turn reestablished the Core 4. And they have a little moment, a cute little moment in the dining room. The scene again then cuts to Danny across the street, or a cute boy across the street, during the time that Sam is making his confession about sleeping with him. He's ironing his shirt, bro. He's ironing his shirt. He's doing a good job, man. He does the most random things in this movie. He's just cleaning up. It's all good. We'll get into the latter later, but anyway. Yeah. But while he's ironing his shirt, the scene cuts to Quinn being on the phone, and a shadow suddenly pops up behind her, and lo and behold, it's Ghostface. However, when you listen to her being on the phone,
in the conversation that she's having, she's talking about how like her housemates are freaked out and they're scared and they're paranoid, and how she doesn't feel comfortable. But Danny catches Ghostface there and is trying to get his attention. Ghostface actually looks up and looks at Danny, and starts to fuck around with Quinn. And that's when Danny tries to reach out to warn Sam and the rest of the people in the apartment that not only is Ghostface there, but killing one of their housemates. And that's when the blood starts to spill within this movie. Like, everybody's catching knives in hands and there's no holding back.
Annika gets it the worst. Like, we're pretty sure this is Ethan because the dad has to be back at the precinct with Kirby.
Quinn's killed.
Yeah, so Ethan...
And I'm pretty sure it is Ethan because Detective Bailey then says he rushes to the scene and switches out the fake body, like Quinn's body with a fake one.
Yes,
so it has to be Ethan.
I think, in all honesty, this is probably the easier movie to figure out who's doing the killings.
100%.
Yeah. But Ethan literally picks up Annika by one hand, throws her to the fucking wall, stabs her, twists it, then lifts it.
Actually starts gutting her. Very similarly to how Amber gutted Dewey.
Or how Billy and Steele gutted Casey.
Yep.
You know, very similar
in the beginning.
to that. But just...
And it's almost mimicking what Stu described. Just take a knife, turn it, and draw it up.
Yeah. So Ethan goes hard on Annika, and at this point, I think Tara and Chad got separated because when they walked out, I think Ethan closed the door and locked it.
Yep.
No one had their keys.
Nope.
The knives were missing.
Yep.
So someone planned this shit, which we see that become a topic later. And then this is where everyone heads to one of the bedroom windows. And again, Pretty Boy has like a ladder that somehow is long enough to reach across the street.
Yeah, and it doesn't extend. He just grabs this ladder and like shoots it out.
You see, it's almost like a cartoon. He keeps pulling it through the window.
It's like a Looney Tune cartoon almost. But Tara crosses first, Mindy crosses next, and then you have Annika who's trying to cross. But this Ghostface is a little diabolical, and Annika, God bless her soul, is trying to cross this ladder while her guts are spilling out, and she's already been bleeding out for a good amount of time. So she's a little too weak to move, and Ghostface takes advantage of this. What kills me is that Sam, I think, held on to Annika for a split moment, and Ghostface shook the ladder just hard enough for Annika's hand to slip. Yeah. And then she then falls off the ladder and goes kerplunk on the dumpster and then onto the floor, and the scene actually cuts to her body being dismangled and like
her head
bloody
was
too.
Bashed.
That was insane. Like, seeing it, I was like, oh, okay. So if I were to ever fall from anything higher than 4 stories, that's what I would look like.
Unless you're John Wick.
Shut up.
But that's when, as you said, Detective Bailey comes in.
Yep. And
we see him dealing with the cops and everything.
Paramedics are there too.
Paramedics. I think Gail gets there at some point, but we'll get into that in a second.
Yep.
This is when the core 4 really gets on Ethan, mainly Chad and Mindy, because he has to be the killer at this point. He was gone. However, he said he had econ, which I thought was an actual convention until you said, no, it was economy.
He was in study hall for econ, and that 100 people would there and be a witness for him, which was a little too convenient.
Those universities be big as shit, man.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, study hall for one class usually is about 200 to 300 people, depending. It's an auditorium.
That's crazy.
It's not a classroom. It's
As y'all can tell, I haven't gone to college, so I don't know.
University.
Or university.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
Detective Bailey then comes and talks to Sam and Tara.
Yep.
And this is where we get a very interesting scene. So you're the one who actually pointed this out. You want to go ahead?
Yeah. And with this scene, you can see him being very emotional. He's very distraught about Quinn being killed. He's like shaky. He just, I don't know, anytime he talks, there's a lot of passion behind it. The one thing that I caught, especially in his eyes, is that Detective Bailey seems to be snapping in and out of character of being a Ghostface in front of Sam and Tara.
Mainly Sam.
Mainly Sam. And the one line that he kind of throws into there is, "You fuck with my family, you die." And he's looking at Sam in the eyes when he says this. But when Gail walks up, you can see him like being really intense and really upset, snaps out of it for a split second, looks back at Sam, and then becomes really intense once again.
Yeah.
So you can tell that he has something against her, at least during the second rewatch and not the first time. More likely than not, you can attribute it to him trying to gauge her reaction to seeing Gail and so on and so forth, because he probably knows the ties that two of them have as a cop. But after like watching it a second time and on, if you pick up on that, you can kind of attribute it to him being like, the fuck is she doing here? Like, she's the one who kind of wrote about my son and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But I don't know. During this scene when Gail finally walked out, we see the old Gail also come out with her. She's throwing shade at Kirby, which is fucking hilarious, and Bailey for not finding the stab cave, essentially what I called earlier, which is otherwise known as the Ghostface Shrine, since Kirby couldn't find it and Bailey couldn't find it either. Like, she's almost boasting about it. She's like, I'm a great journalist. Like, look, I found this.
She calls them like rookies at some point, too.
Essentially.
Which, this is the Gail that we like. Like,
the witty, like, on her toes, ready to snap back, ready to fight, like, has that fire behind her eyes and in the way that she talks. This is the Gail that I wanted to see in the beginning of the film, not the one who is going around being all snarky and saying, like, well, if I'm going to write about it. If I didn't write about it, somebody else would.
You could have literally had a scene of her at the news station and she sees the first edition of like what happened with the Ghostface killings. And then you literally just have her like, okay, you know what I mean? And then we don't know what she's going to do, but then she pops up here. And
they would have been perfect.
She's already been investigating, looking it up.
Because it's already in her hometown. We know in movie 5 that she's in New York. She has her own show.
This is her element. You know?
Yeah. So she's going to be there.
Anyways, I don't want to get in because this is gonna make me hate the movie more. I'm just kidding. I actually like this movie a lot. But Tara points out that all this stuff in the shrine is evidence, and Gail makes a comment about how cops like money and evidence gets lost, which then focuses on Kirby and Bailey. And Bailey himself tries not to acknowledge it.
He just kind of looks away for a split second.
Yeah, kind of hilarious. There's a little bit foreshadowing there, but either way, you get that. Sam has this weird vision with Billy and almost seems to kind of get sucked into accepting her fate as a serial killer like her father, but Tara's the one to pull her back.
And this is a constant theme throughout the film.
And quick side note, they kind of tried to do away with the full CG render of Billy.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell it's still the actor who probably did the acting for that scene, because I think Skeet is still credited.
Yeah.
But they did it in a way to where it almost looks very transparent. He's talking through the glass, if you will. So
only through reflections, it seems.
Yeah.
He seems to show up. Like,
it's not like a full on like him in the back seat or something and him talking to her. You know? Yeah. So that,
at least with this film,
that helped a lot. I think it made it a little bit better than what Scream 5 did. Mindy and Kirby then debate over Stu being alive after seeing the old TV set.
All this is happening at the same time, by the way. People are absorbing different pieces and different spectacles of the evidence that was being collected. And there's even like hand-drawn pictures coinciding with the pieces of evidence in the moment that it occurred within the Scream franchise, or I guess within the Stab franchises.
And they're looking at the TV that killed Stu.
Yep.
Which is what sparks the conversation.
Yep.
Now, they debate over Stu being alive, which again is interesting because this isn't the first nod to Stu Macher being alive.
I think it's from movie 3.
Well, there's supposedly a script about, Stu coming back, which was, I think, written by Kevin Williamson, also the guy who's directing Scream 7. But, so there was that nod. But then also in Scream 5, when what's-his-face, Richie is watching the YouTube channel of the Stab version or Scream version of Kill Count, there's a little video there in his recommendation that says, "Is Stu still alive?"
Yep.
So, little Easter eggs and hints to the fact that we may be seeing Stu Macher in the near future.
I hope so. I mean, I don't know how I feel about the Scream 7 and all the shit behind it, but definitely want to see Stu again.
Tara and Sam have an exchange that seems to put the blame of Tara not having a normal life on Sam. This is when we find out that the girl's mom cut them both off. I think they said she cut them off because Sam told Tara about Billy, and then Tara cut the mom off because the mom's not talking to Sam. So the whole family kind of got separated there, which makes sense as to why Sam and Tara are the only ones together now.
Yeah.
We still haven't seen this supposed woman, the mother, and
no, never. Not in 5, not in 6, which I guess is fine. Judging based off of how Tara and Sam look, they probably had similar attributes to Sydney, because Billy seems to fall for the brunette type, not the blonde type.
Yeah.
While Stu went for the blonde type. It was pretty funny.
Casey and
Tatum.
Tatum, yeah. So, but anyways, Gail comes and comforts Sam, and what's interesting is that while explaining how family can just be one person, because Gail did find her family in Dewey. Like, let's keep it real. She was, some people would call a cold-blooded person. A lot of people even mention that, you know what I mean? Very cutthroat. She found her family through Dale. She found her family through Dewey. I don't know where Dale came from. I was thinking of Dale from The Walking Dead.
Yeah, that or you put Gail and Dewey together.
Oh, that too?
Yeah.
They play the theme song that usually plays when Gail and Dewey were on screen together. I think it's like Dewey's theme song.
Yeah.
I would have to look it up, but very subtle, but it just makes me miss Dewey. I feel like Dewey really was the heart and soul of that franchise.
He was.
Like, it's like every time you would see him, that song would play.
Yep.
And you just knew you were watching the Scream movie, you know? So it does make me miss them, but I was happy they kind of included that there. And I got my little fix on that, you know, hearing that song play. So at this point, I think we hear either Sam or Tara, Detective Bailey comes up with the plan.
Yep.
To lure Ghostface out.
Yep. Which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's a classic cops like stakeout, but the fact that he brought it up is like pretty obvious, knowing what we know now, obviously after watching a few times, that he was thinking while everybody was looking at all the evidence and having their moments.
Yeah.
So he kind of hatches the plan and tells the rest of the group, like, hey, let's go ahead and go to an open area, public area at a park. We'll have Kirby and everybody else here, and then we'll have me walking around the park, and then Sam and Tara just casually being around there.
Gail's not allowed.
Gail's not allowed, though. And funny enough, this is something that both Bailey and Kirby agree upon.
Yeah.
Which you can attribute to press and cops not really liking each other. And the plan seems to be going really well. Mindy takes a dig at Kirby, saying how, like, cops need at least 2 minutes. Kirby's just like, all I need is 15 seconds, which shuts Mindy up for the first time. It seems like Kirby can keep up with Mindy's wit, which I really, really like.
Yeah.
And Chad's just kind of sitting there on the sidelines, just watching it all happen.
Ethan's
also there eating his hot Cheetos,
like
which
me.
is fucking funny, hysterical. That red 40 probably got him crazy. Let's be real.
I actually have some hot Cheetos. Let me eat some after this.
Better hot Cheetos than the one that he's eating. Anyway, cut to Sam and Tara walking around in the park when they're having a small little debate about whether or not this plan is really going to work, when Ghostface calls Sam. And anytime that Ghostface is calling Sam, it shows up as Richie's profile.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because everybody else who has gotten the call hasn't had Richie's number show up for them. So knowing that Bailey is Ghostface, it seems like he set up the whole stakeout hunt down, if you will, to keep everyone on the other side of town, while Ghostface, one of his 2 kids, goes and kills off Gail. Now we know Ethan is with Kirby, and we know Bailey is back at the park. So we don't know who this fucking Ghostface is. So essentially, first time watching, as an audience member, you're thinking it can't be Ethan and it can't be Bailey, because they're both already there.
Can't be Kirby.
Can't be Kirby either. Can't be any of the other folks. So who the fuck is this Ghostface? And I think first time watching it in the theaters, that was my exact thoughts. It was, who is this person?
Yeah.
Because everybody that I've been familiarized with right now doesn't seem to be there. And it can't be Quinn, because Quinn's dead, right?
Yeah.
The only reason why you and I came to the conclusion that the fact that Bailey was the one who set up this whole thing is because Gail was the one who found the stab cave, if you will. So out of anybody within that group, she was the biggest threat because she figured something out that she wasn't supposed to. So that's probably the reason why Bailey wants to cut her off.
Yeah.
During the whole fight of Ghostface and Gail, this Ghostface seems to be on another fucking level. Like, moving quick, not getting breathless. We see Gail's boyfriend getting pulled off from the side into the room. But
big dude, too.
Big fucking dude. Muscular as fuck. But this Ghostface doesn't lose a breath. When this Ghostface is finally, like, coming and confronting Gail, I think Ghostface makes, like, some sort of meta comment about how, like, fans always wanted Gail to be the killer, where, that's when everything picks up and Ghostface makes his appearance to try and kill her.
Yeah.
You have this badass scene play out where, like, he's jumping around from place to place, but he's not, like, literally jumping. It looks like this figure, this man, this being is gliding.
Yeah.
And
very ferocious.
Very much. I think there's this one scene when Ghostface first takes their lunge at Gale where literally his arms are out and he looks like a fucking bat flying down to Gale ready to take that chomp.
Yeah.
Right? Gale does a good job of fighting him off. Does a very good job of like stalling him, even does like a cute little witty thing of like calling back the number that is calling her landline.
Yeah.
Even tells Ghostface to hold, please, and takes a shot at him. Ultimately, Ghostface still gets the upper hand and like gets to stab her. She nearly dies. But
I think we pointed out that since, you know, this has to be Quinn most likely.
Yeah.
That actually plays a big part into why this Ghostface is like this, because up until this point, it's only been Ethan and the dad that's been putting on the costume.
So she's been reeling to get her knife wet, in all honesty.
Her knife wet's insane.
Think about it. And she does. Like, she gets a good job at getting Gale of, like, taking a few stabs at her, not just with the knife, but also with a giant fucking piece of glass.
Yeah.
Tara and Sam run in. They save Gale. But this is when the two of them decide to really take the jump and really figure out a way to get Ghostface back. Sam and Tara run in. They save Gale from Ghostface, and Tara devises a plan about how to lure and excite Ghostface to the stab cave, if you will. And they need, like, I think they get Kirby involved. Kirby's there kind of setting everything up while the rest of the group is on the subway, trying to get to the stab cave, if you will. But obviously this is all
stab cave.
This is all happening on Halloween night. And
Halloween's in full effect.
Full fucking effect. You have everybody in costume, and these costumes are crazy. You have Michael Myers, you have a bunch of Ghostface, you have Pinheads, you even have character like Grace from Ready or Not, you have Pennywise, Freddy Krueger, the twins from The Shining, Tethers from Us, and so much more. So many like different homages and alludes, and the Ready or Not makes sense because, funny enough, the therapist, we come to find out, was the father figure in Ready or Not as well.
Yeah, and Radio Silence worked on both Ready or Not and the Scream movies. Yeah,
so it's really dope. During this time, what I failed to mention is that everybody except for Mindy and Ethan get on the first subway, and Mindy and Ethan get on the second one, being quote unquote only 10 minutes behind. And then you have the famous subway scene where Mindy is going from seat to seat, getting pushed back all the way to the back of the car. And there's a bunch of Ghostface on, because obviously news about Ghostface gets people dressing up as them, right? So nobody wants to get hurt. I think Mindy and Chad even have an exchange about not wanting to get hurt earlier on in the film. Yeah. But when Mindy gets to the back of the car, it's almost like as if she sealed her fate. Lights go out in the subway, and
beautiful scene,
gorgeous. And you only have moments where like lights shine in, and there's this one particular Ghostface that's sitting in the car looking down. And when the lights go off, he's not there anymore. Mindy looks up into the crowd, and then you see this one Ghostface staring her down. Anytime the light shines in, this Ghostface is getting closer and closer. I think it's the third or fourth shine where there's no more light, but you can still see the Ghostface moving closer. Ghostface covers Mindy's mouth, stabs her in the stomach, and literally like drags her down and watches her as like she gets weaker and weaker. He then leaves whenever the subway car is open. But the one interesting thing that I caught while watching this scene is that Ethan is constantly keeping his eyes on Mindy, except for whenever the lights are out. Now you can attribute it to the lights being out and him not really knowing exactly what's going on. But at the same time, up until this point, he's constantly checking on her, constantly looking at her. So knowing what we know now, more likely than not, he made sure not to look at her so this way his face wouldn't give it away.
Right.
So once she gets stabbed, he then grabs her, pulls her out, calls for the paramedics, and Mindy's off at the hospital getting taken care of.
She makes a little side comment of like, damn, I got it wrong again.
Yeah.
Fuck this franchise.
Yeah. So it's pretty funny. Everybody else gets to the stab shrine, or the stab cave, if you will. I've been rambling for a while, so I'm going to let you take it off and finish it from here.
Sam gets rid of Danny, her pretty boy boyfriend. At least is what Chad and everyone refers to him as, because he's not Woodsboro. They can't trust him.
Yep.
So they send him off, and he's pretty calm about it. So the one cool thing about this movie is that they didn't make it as easy as the love interest.
No.
Kind of very similar to Scream 2, where it wasn't the love interest that was involved.
Which I liked.
Yeah.
I liked a lot.
It wasn't a direct copy of
No.
Scream 1 and 2. But at the shrine, that's when you have, I believe, Sam have another vision with Billy.
Mm-hmm.
Billy says, you need to check this place yourself. You need to sweep it yourself. Get a knife and let's go kick some fucking ass.
And the knife that she picks is Billy's knife.
I think at this point she gets a call, from Detective Bailey, who mentions that Kirby was fired from the FBI.
Don't trust her.
Don't trust her. She went on a down spiral after the murders last year. All sorts of crazy stuff.
Mm.
And at this point, she believes him because she's been pretty cool with Detective Bailey as of recent. So she believes what he says. She runs up. Everything's locked. She can't escape. And then they do not find Kirby. She then comes in on Chad and Tara, who were kind of having their moment, and they finally were kissing. And yeah, finally got that out of the way, just like how Mindy wanted. And during the kiss, she actually gets stabbed by one of the ghost faces. Chad, in the back, yeah. Chad and Tara freak out, but Sam's right there ready to help because she just came in.
Yep.
And everyone runs off, but Chad does get a pretty good swing on him. Chad was kind of the MVP here in this scene.
Yeah, he does a good job.
I feel like if there was only one ghost face in this scene, they probably would have survived it. But yeah, because Chad and Sam together kicking ass, I mean,
they did a good job.
Yeah,
they did a very good job holding their own.
Chad was doing his thing. He even does that, grabs the camera from the cameraman from Scream 1, the big dude that was eating Cheetos.
Yeah, fucking swings at him.
He goes, smile for the camera, motherfucker, boom, right? Which is pretty good.
And the other scene of him going, beheadings.
Beheadings? Little callback from earlier in the movie. Yeah, beheadings.
It was fucking hilarious.
Chad's great, man. MVP.
He is. I think he's the new Dewey.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So, they take off running, but this Ghostface is quick. Catches up to them immediately. Chad, of course, gets the upper hand on Ghostface again, tells the girls they need to run and save themselves, and as he's about to go for the finishing blow with a popcorn machine, you have another Ghostface pop up, stabs him in the side, the other one gets up, and they just go to town.
A lot of stabs, man.
Chad got hoed big time in this one.
His face is turning pale, you have blood streaming out of his mouth. In my mind, the first time I'm watching this, I was thinking, he's gone. There's no way he's surviving this.
They literally do a knife swipe at the same time.
They turn towards Sam and Tara, and they do a knife swipe at the same time, and that scene brought me chills.
I don't think our second theater experience reacted too crazy to it, but our first one, everybody went.
We went wild.
Right at the same time, everyone went, ah, or oh shit, or that was dope.
Yeah.
And I also love the little fake out there because the way the ghost faces break up to catch Sam and Tara, one of them comes forward. It almost makes it seem like there's a third one too.
I know, and I think I even said it in the theater.
You yelled in the theater, you're like, there's a third one?
Yeah. Which I guess I wasn't wrong in retrospect, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. But then Detective Bailey shows up, him and Kirby kind of have some words because Kirby was knocked out, which is why they couldn't find her earlier. We see a ghost face running up behind Detective Bailey.
Which is a cool callback to Scream 4 because that's what Charlie does to Kirby.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it also, if the audience members, because I didn't believe this, but if anybody in the audience watching it for the first time thought that Kirby was Ghostface, why wouldn't you use the same tactics that Charlie did?
Exactly. So you have the ghost face running up behind Bailey, but then right as he's about to stab, he stops literally right to his shoulder. Real close. Detective Bailey fires some shots, hits Kirby. Kirby's down. It's revealed that Quinn is alive and is the third ghost face, the second being Ethan, and the first being Detective Bailey. They are the Kirsch family, the father and siblings to Richie Kirsch from Scream 5. Mm-hmm. Good reveal. Makes Scream 5 so much better. Yep. They reveal that this entire shrine Richie put together, I guess, with the help of his dad.
Yeah.
From getting the evidence and stuff. So this whole shrine was Richie's. Everything belonged to him. Kind of weird and crazy in retrospect, knowing that even before Scream 5 took place, before he moved out to California, that in New York, Richie had a whole area
to himself.
that was full of Scream stuff. So
The one thing that
Like-
caught me off guard, that still catches me off guard though, is that Bailey constantly emphasizes about his connection to Richie. How he can't get over his first son being killed. And even Ethan makes a face whenever he's having that monologue, which is really weird.
remember how you and I talked about in Scream 5 how Richie was starstruck when he met Dewey?
Yes.
Did you see how in Dewey's shrine there was a very recent picture of him?
Yes.
I don't know if that was just for Richie to kind of see what Dewey looked like nowadays, or if that picture was put there recently, like if Bailey had put that there before Scream 6. But
Probably a mix of both.
I was gonna say if it wasn't before Scream 6 and it was a picture of Dewey like in his last couple of years on the force or whatever, then again just goes to show how much of a big fan he was, of Dewey. Which I think that's not the first joke about that. They mentioned in Scream 3 about Dewey being such a fan favorite character that they made another cop just like him, right? Because that guy, the one with the mustache, he's not supposed to be Dewey, but he's playing like a type of character like Dewey. So it's mentioned that Dewey is a fan favorite, like in our universe as well. So very cool little nod there. I'm sorry, I'm rambling anyways. So you have Sam and Tara putting all this stuff together. You see Quinn and Ethan's true sides come out. A whole brawl ensues. Sam and Tara ultimately get the best of them. I think Tara is the one who kills Ethan, or at least stabs him and puts him out of commission, right? She stabs him right in the mouth. I think Quinn gets killed by Sam.
Yeah, shot in the head.
And then Detective Bailey pulls up and Sam and Detective Bailey go at it. But ultimately when Sam ditches him and then gets the costume, she's able to fake him out by calling him and asks him the line that kind of started it all, right? What's your favorite scary movie?
The thing is, though, what you and I glossed over is the costume that she grabs is Billy Loomis's costume, which is the costume that the trio wanted to put on Sam before they killed her.
Yes.
So Bailey also makes a comment about, wow, you're wearing your father's clothes. You're finally coming to the person you're supposed to be, right? And whenever it comes to Sam having the costume on and finally getting the best of Bailey, she stabs him a lot, but lets him live for a split second because Tara walks in.
Takes the mask off.
And Tara and Sam exchange this look.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Tara's telling Sam, are we really going to let him live? And Sam gives her a small smile and turns the same line that he used on her back at him and says, you fuck with my family, you die. Stabs him in the heart, and Bailey's out of commission for sure.
The eye. Yeah. And going back to what you said about taking the mask off makes sense, because if she had killed him with the mask on, she'd be no different than her dad.
Exactly.
She's a murderer.
Yeah.
But she took the mask off and said, you fucked with my family. This isn't about because I want to kill you. It's because you started this and you hurt me, and I'm getting you back.
I'm finishing it.
Yeah. So I actually like that a lot.
Yeah.
Of her taking the mask off before dealing the final blow.
Mm-hmm.
So her and Tara end up heading out. Kirby's still alive. Danny Boy comes back with a whole bunch of reinforcements, paramedics, cops.
Good job, Danny. Good job, good boy.
He ended up being a good guy. So hopefully they're still together.
I hope so.
If they ever do something in the future, probably not if it's made by Spyglass, but neither here nor there.
Anyway.
So we find out that Chad's still alive. Don't know how he survived that, but I guess knew Dewey.
Yep.
So he survived that. You have Mindy pull up. She's walking because she's on drugs. She
even mentions it.
I can't feel anything. You guys should try it.
They gave me so many drugs.
She pulls up like, Detective Bailey and Ethan are the killers. So is Quinn. What?
Yeah, I was right.
And then Sam and Tara have a little conversation. I guess Kirby mentions they're all family, so call me if you need me.
Mm-hmm.
She has like this weird moment where she's staring directly at the ghost face mask, but ultimately puts it down. She walks off literally into the sunset with Tara.
But remember, Tara pulls her back from it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then that's when she drops the mask, signifying she drops her past and walks forward into her future with Tara.
And that's Scream 6.
Mm-hmm.
Good fucking movie, man.
Yeah.
Minus some of the Gil stuff. Good fucking movie.
It's a decent film.
I would probably put this higher than 5, so I'd probably give it like a solid 8 out of 10.
I would give it an 8, 8.5 on a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. Like I said, and like we both said, it's definitely a duo. But if you don't watch 5 or 2022, you can still pick up on the bits and pieces in Scream 6. So you don't have to, but if you kind of, I guess, want to watch the prequel to this film, then by all means jump into 22.
I guess just to talk about it real quick, I'm assuming since we know what's going to happen with 7, we're not going to see Sam and Tara's story continue. But at the same time, though, it did kind of end off in a pretty good note here.
Yeah, we don't have to, so it's fine, I guess. But at the same time, I still would have loved to see how Mindy and Chad and the rest of them would have progressed in this universe.
Going back to what you said earlier about the mom, if Sam and Tara's story would have continued, I could have definitely seen the mom being the big part of it.
Yeah.
Considering that Sam is done with the Billy stuff.
Yeah.
And the mom is probably back in Woodsboro, which could also line up with Stu probably be back in Woodsboro. So there's a lot of cool stuff they could have done there to continue the story. But as a standalone sequel was just 5 and 6, the way it ended, I can see this being done for them. Like if you want to say they never encounter Ghostface again, it's done for them, I would believe it.
Yeah.
It was a very good ending for the two characters.
For sure.
Yeah. But let us know what you think of Scream 5 and 6 down below. I know this episode ended up being really long. We apologize for that. We went really in depth on this. I'm sure you could tell.
Yeah.
But ultimately, thank you guys again for a fun season 2. We're going to be back with season 3 and probably this time with video. So
yeah.
Make sure to check us out over on our YouTube page, Slashers in Sync. You can also find us on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, and you can find us on YouTube Music. All the links will be down below in the description. Also, the debut of our new website too, which will lead you to everything that is Slashers in Sync. So, thank you again for tuning in, and thank you for listening as always.
Talk to you next time.